We'll be focusing on the politics of the day. We ask ourselves whether it is greed or it is indeed the interest of the people or it is just sheer witch hunt. That is what we'll be discussing this morning. We'll be having members of parliament alongside the governance experts. They will take us through this conversation, a conversation like no other. But even if all this is happening, we still remain vigilant, we still remain alert as a people, hoping that things will be well. Constantly we remind ourselves that amid all these political tensions, intolerance and pressures, it is always important that as a people we remember the core value, of course, what it is that is dictated of us or that is expected of us by the Constitution, as we try our level best to always maintain that peace and tranquility. And in the country walks into a sad morning. First of all, that is Simeon Nyachae was laid to rest yesterday. Sadly enough, we woke up to that bad news of the demise of Garissa Senator, that is Yusuf Haji, and even worse, a member of parliament has also passed on. So this morning we'll be giving you all these details, even as we continue to condole with the family and friends of these individuals as a people, and right here as TV47. It is good to have you this morning. My name is Linda Alela. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47. And the program indeed is Morning Cafe. So let's kickstart as we equally take a look at what the papers have to say and importantly what it is that my team has prepared. Welcome on board. Let's briefly look at what the papers have this morning. We have the People Daily, the Standard newspaper and the Daily Nation. This is the People Daily. Inside illicit but hugely lucrative charcoal trade. That's an interesting one. And report exposes how commodity in the middle of a vicious scramble between a cartel drawing corrupt traders, police, politicians and officials charged with saving Kenya's forests. That is one story that we need to look at. I mean, for the longest of time, the coal business has been out here, and in most cases, it's not been a good one. Has caused trouble across different parts. At some point in time, some coming from Somalia and others being told not to sell to them or not to sell to people who are hailing from these other sides of Qatar, these other sides of Dubai and so much. So looking at that as we get to understand what exactly this report speaks about, but also borders to be trained on safety and investment, a story captured on page 2, which is very, very important, looking at the numerous cases of accidents that we've witnessed that are caused or that happened at this point with borders, some of them being hit, others hitting each other, and it's pretty much unfortunate following each other. So is also one that is a very important. Grand farewell, and the story of Nyachae and Haji is one of two national leaders, both in their 80s, who served together in the provincial administration and cabinet, are buried on the same day. That is a story captured on page 5, 6 and 7. We expound some more on that as we proceed. But also this one, Kenya gets 265 billion loan from IMF for COVID relief. That is a story captured on page 12. Whether it's reason to smile or not is a question of wait and see. We'll also get to hear what the pundits have to say in regards to the same. As I've said, is a story captured on page 12 of the People Daily. Standard newspaper front page, Haji, peace broker and schemer. Many will remember Haji, who died and was buried yesterday at the age of 80 for chairing the BBI team and two-term senator for Garissa County. And yet he was much more than that. Both his public roles and quiet behind the scenes tasks in the northern eastern Kenya and neighboring countries. A story captured on page 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 extensively is one that we'll be looking at as we proceed. Uhuru Ruto and Raila avoid politics at the funeral of Mzee Simeon Nyachae. That is technically what it is that the family wished for, that it would not be a political ground. Right Honorable Raila Odinga, in an interesting way, winding it up by saying that, well, much as we're not talking matters politics, BBI. He finished with that particular statement just to remind the people that it is important that they rally behind supporting the BBI document or the Building Bridges initiative. And so, away from it, Form 1 selection, why your child could be stuck in the village school. All about 7,000 day secondary schools will now be required to enroll their children from within their localities to ensure that they communicate or they commute daily. That's an interesting one in a major plan to position the institutions as the pillars of ambitious reforms in the basic education sector. That is a story captured on page 8, that is on the Standard newspaper, and extensively explains of what the situation on matters education will be like in the country. Cost of fuel and power may rise over draft rules. That is one thing I'm sure that is not going to rub many the good way, because then we look at how expensive life has become. The other day, the other day, of course, fuel prices went up, something that rubbed very many people badly, and they felt like this was not the right way. But then again, equally trying to match up to the global fraternity, especially at this point of COVID-19. Supply is low, demand is high. Definitely, this would make the product a little bit more expensive. A story captured on, or better yet, coming to the Daily Nation, Hustler Thunderbolt and a proposed law adds social status as a basis of discrimination by amending the NCIC Act 2008 and the poor versus the rich narrative. Deputy President William Ruto campaigns, or is always campaigning on this particular slogan, has been targeted by a new bill that prescribes 5 years in jail or a fine of 5 million for any leader who goes there and sets out or propagates this particular division in the country. And once convicted, such leaders will also be barred from holding political office. Whether it's a target to Deputy President William Ruto or not is a question of wait and see. And most of the leaders, we have technically seen a majority of them will always go there to get this narrative of a division or differences. So we'll be discussing that as we proceed and we get to understand just how instrumental this bill then would be in terms of ensuring that there is peace and tranquility and that we have political grounds or politics of sanity, as opposed to those ones that in a huge way have instigated intolerance in the country. Yusuf Haji, a power man for all seasons. A story captured also extensively on page 10 and 11. And also, nation bids farewell to Mzee Nyachari. Equally a story that has been captured by the Standard, by the Daily Nation on page 4 in regards to yesterday's burial proceedings of the late Mzee Simeon Nyachari. So these are the key stories that are captured on the newspapers. And as we drop on the newspapers, we come to a different conversation altogether, where we update you on what is happening right now, what you expect. Of course, we've not set up the diary, but all the same, bursaries will be awarded to Nairobi students by the acting deputy governor as it stands for now, or the deputy governor, so to speak. And so we'll be looking at details of the same and a couple of other stories that will be coming your way. We'll be giving you updates as and when they hit our desk. But away from it, briefly, we look at what it is that is on the roads, just so you are aware of what to expect when you're stepping out. Let's try and see what the roads look like this morning. Not so much of alarm as it is. Most of the key roads are not looking so bad this morning. But then again, in the event that there's something that will be there, we'll be here to update you. As I try and get a hold of this, I don't know why it's not giving me the right pictures as expected, evidently showing that maybe there's not much of traffic across different parts. As I try and get a lot of updates in regards to the same, we'll first of all take a look at what it is that my team has captured in terms of news, and then we'll be coming back to that later on. Now, former Garissa Senator and BBI Task Force co-chair Yusuf Haji was yesterday evening buried at the Langata Muslim Cemetery in Nairobi. Haji passed on earlier yesterday at the Aga Khan University Hospital, where he was being treated after jetting back into the country last week. Mwangi Minor reports.
Leaders, relatives and friends trooped in at the home of former Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji to condole with the family after news of his demise broke out. Shortly before 4 p.m, the body of the late senator was driven to the Masjid Nur Mosque in South Sea, Nairobi, for evening prayers before he was interred at the Langata Cemetery. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who attended the burial, led the country in mourning a leader who gave himself to serve the country and its citizens, even in his sunset years.
Mzee Haji, mashauri yake haikuwa ya kitu chochote. Ni mashauri ya kutoka kwa roho, ya kutoka fikira zake, na ndipo nilikuwa na muamini vile nilimuamini. Miaka hiyo yote hakuna chochote mwenyewe ameuliza chake isipokuwa za wananchi ambao anawakilisha na fikira zake za vile mwelekeo wa taifa letu watakikana kuendelea.
President Uhuru Kenyatta mourned Haji as a selfless and dedicated leader whom he says his entire life was dedicated to serving Kenyans in different capacities.
Lakini taifa la Kenya limepoteza kiongozi shujaa, kiongozi ambaye amesimamia haki za wananchi wa taifa hili letu la Kenya, kiongozi ambaye amefanya kazi ya wananchi karibu miaka yake yote mpaka dakika yake ya mwisho.
Yusuf Haji has passed on at a time when the country is sharply divided over the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill, which he midwifed as a co-chair of the BBI Task Force Committee. He has been mentioned as a patriotic Kenyan whose desire was to deliver a united country through the Constitutional Amendment Bill.
Yusuf Haji has done his bit. He's transferred this country and various careers for very many years, for over 50-60 years. And there's no better gift that he has left behind, but just he has mentored many people, including myself.
One concern, and I'm going to be candid, he had one concern. Obviously, he had issues with some of the things that had been proposed. And the beauty about it is that he never took to platform, but he was engaging leadership. I knew he was talking to Uhuru, I knew he was talking to Raila on matters that he wasn't comfortable about.
The late senator was a career administrator whose service in the country spans more than 50 years in the public service. He first served as a division officer in 1960 before being appointed provincial commissioner in the Rift Valley and Western provinces.
We have lost a father figure, a man who has been in the midst of us for many years, a man we could always fall back on for advice, for wisdom that was required many times in our country and in the country at large.
Was the icon in the Senate. He was the voice of wisdom. He was the one actually giving direction whenever there are issues in the House, and everybody used to respect him in the House. We have lost a great man.
He mentored me, and I looked up to him in many ways. If there's one person that embodies true leadership, is Senator Yusuf Haji.
Haji was the father to Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji.
After a successful 8 years here on earth, it is the final journey for Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji. He has been mourned by many, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, as a selfless leader who gave his all to serve the country and its citizens. Mwangi Maina, TV 47 from Langata Cemetery, Nairobi.
And now, having dedicated close to half of his life to public service, Yusuf Haji rose through the ranks from a district officer to become one of Kenya's longest-serving politicians at the age of 80. The second-term senator who chaired the famous BBI task force served under all the 4 Kenyan presidents. Musa Salah now takes a look at the life of Yusuf Haji.
Mohammed Yusuf Haji was born on the 23rd of December 1940 in Garissa town. Haji joined Kenya's provincial administration in 1960 as a district officer and rose through the ranks to become one of the country's most powerful provincial commissioners, a post he retired from in 1998. A few years later, in 2002, Haji was nominated to parliament in what will be the beginning of a 2-decade-long career in politics. He returned to parliament in 2007 as an elected member of parliament for Ijara constituency on a Kenya African National Union KANU ticket. He was then appointed as Defense Cabinet Minister in retired President Mwai Kibaki's Grand Coalition government in 2008 to 2012, when he briefly served as Minister of Internal Security and Provincial Affairs before his election to the Senate to represent Garissa County in 2013 and his subsequent re-election in 2017. Haji will be remembered for chairing the Building Bridges Initiative BBI task force that compiled the BBI report that has since developed into the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. Musa Salah, TV 47.
Once more, may his soul rest in eternal peace. And the great Kisii man and veteran politician Simeon Chai was laid to rest Monday in his rural home in Yosia village, Kisii County. National leaders and politicians led by President Uhuru Kenyatta have mourned him as a patriotic leader who served with dignity. Our reporter Joash Onsari attended the function and prepared the following report.
Top leadership led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, his deputy William Ruto, veteran politicians, cabinet secretaries, permanent secretaries, MPs, county leadership, and Kenyans made their way to Gusii Stadium to pay their last respects to Gusii veteran politician Mzee Simeon Nyachae. President Kenyatta eulogized Mzee Nyachae as a disciplinarian and a dedicated patriotic leader to be emulated.
The Honorable Mzee Nyachae was a great son of Kenya, whose immeasurable contributions to the nation spanned many decades and inspired millions of Kenyans. In the passing of the Honorable Nyachae, we are all deprived of his leadership, great passion, determination, and energy towards serving our country.
And posthumously, President Kenyatta directed that Gusii Stadium be renamed to Simeon Nyachae Stadium as a recognition for his contribution to society.
As a government, we have considered it fit to rename this stadium the Simeon Nyachae Stadium Kisii.
The deputy president termed Nyachae as a straightforward leader who modeled many modern-day political leaders.
As Mzee Nyachae rests, he speaks to us, and he speaks to us loudly. Looking at his life, he had the option of waiting to share what his father Mzee Nyandusi had. But he chose a different route, that instead of waiting to share what was there, he decided to create more.
While addressing the mourners, BBI proponent and ODM leader Raila Odinga eulogized Mzee Nyachae as a great leader, but didn't miss a chance to popularize the BBI agenda.
Nyachae is somebody who was schooled in the tradition of the British civil service, which basically promotes excellency and correctness in service of the people. Today it's not politics, but I can say BBI. Thank you.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and ANC's Musalia Mudavadi also remembered Simeon Nyachae as a great and dependable leader.
This man contributed immensely to the well-being of Kenya. May his soul rest in eternal peace. To the Abu Gusii, you gave us a good son. To the Grace and the Nyachae family, you lend us a very good patriotic father and Kenyan citizen.
Can clear from our image the fact that we are here to bury a real patriot, a national leader. May God rest his soul in eternal peace.
Members of his family recalled with nostalgia the fallen father and husband.
The better for me was much longer than for worse. When it became necessary for me to serve him, I had no reservation. I was ready to look after Mzee because over the years, he had invested in me, he had loved me so deeply, and for better was so long.
As we lay you to rest today, I want to promise you that I will do my part towards your family remaining as you had built it and as you would like it to remain.
Gusii Council of Elders Chairman Mzee Matundura said Nyachai's ambition for the Kisii community was unity and the fight against corruption.
Parasa letu wachukue yale yote mzee alituambia, tuyatumie, tuyaangalie kwa makini, tuendelee naye, itasaidia jamii ya Wakisii kabisa.
With Simeon Nyachai's book being closed today, the Kisii community will be looking forward to identify a leader who is going to propel and raise the community's voice in the political status nationally. Joash Onsare, TV47, Kisii County.
Also on that sad note, Bunchari Member of Parliament John Oro Oyoko died yesterday at the Aga Khan Hospital, who has been unwell for quite a while. He hasn't been seen in public functions for many months, and may his soul equally rest in eternal peace. But still on the drama, or in Kisii County, and the drama Sambir on matters at this particular point of the burial, Kisii County Deputy Governor Joash Maangi and South Mugirango Member of Parliament Silvanus Osoro spent the night in police cells. The two were arrested during the funeral of the late Simeon Nyachai in Kisii County, as Mudhoni Minor reports.
It was an unexpected turn of events for Kisii Deputy Governor Joash Maangi and South Mugirango MP Silvanus Osoro. Like every other political leader in Kisii County, the duo had planned to be at the funeral service for veteran Gusii politician Simeon Nyachai, but that was not to be. South Mugirango MP Silvanus Osoro was picked by the detectives from the funeral service, where President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto, among other dignitaries, were in attendance. Osoro was driven to Keroka police station, where he was interrogated over alleged incitement of members of the public to heckle politicians who attended the funeral. The lawmaker recently faced off with Dagoretti North MP Simba Arati at the funeral of Joash Maangi's father in Bomachoge Chache constituency, which was attended by Deputy President William Ruto.
Nothing serious, it's just normal interrogation by the officers. Nimefika tu Matanga, nimeambiwa ninatafutwa, and then I had to leave, in the company of officers. I don't know the reason, but I guess it's normal, politics or normal questioning.
Kisii Deputy Governor Joash Maangi had early in the morning been apprehended at Kisii School while waiting to welcome DP Ruto. Maangi was taken to Kisii Central Police Station but was later driven to Oyugis Police Station, where he will spend the night. Both Maangi and Osoro are supporters of Deputy President William Ruto.
The Deputy Governor is also arrested, I'm told. He told me. Your case could be as good as mine. Deputy Governor is arrested, I am arrested. Omwando is arrested. Your case is as good as mine. Yes, perhaps my only mistake is supporting William Ruto. That is it.
The detectives remained silent on whether the politicians will be arraigned in court on Tuesday or not. Mudhoni Minor, TV47.
Some bit of politics. Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho has reiterated that he will go for the presidency come 2022. Joho told skeptics who think Mombasa cannot produce presidential material to watch his space, as he is not relenting in his quest. Joho spoke during a bursaries checks distribution event in Changamwe, as Maria Mocharo tells us.
Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho is determined to succeed Uhuru Kenyatta at State House in 2022. And the second time, Governor says Mombasa is no less in producing presidential candidates.
Mtoto aliozaliwa Mombasa hawezi kuwa rais wa nchi hii. Mombasa ni Kenya, sisi wote ni wa Kenya, na tutapigania hicho kiti cha urais, my friend. Tutapigania hapo hapo. And we will not shy away, my friend. Let me tell you, wale ambaye wanaona hatutofanya, tutafanya. Kama ni kulumbana, tutalumbana umo umo. Kama ni kubanana, tutabanana wapi? Umo umo. Lakini safari hii, mtoto alozaliwa Mombasa, Mkenya halisi kama Mkenya mwingine yoyote, atakuwa katika debe la urais. Wacha wajue hiyo.
Joho also took a swipe at Deputy President William Ruto. He wondered what new agenda DP Ruto has for the youth that this time he couldn't have rolled out since he came into office in 2013. Sentiments echoed by Likoni Member of Parliament Mishi Mboko.
William Ruto has been the Deputy President from 2013. 20. Ndio waja na Wilbaro, my friend. Tuseme ukweli. Mimi naelewa na mimi nataka niwakumbushe kiongozi yoyote ambaye anakuja kukumbusha wewe ni maskini hana nia nzuri na wewe.
We belong to the school of thought of the handshake. We are promising we will propose the BBI. Wale wengine wakae kule kule na hatutakubali kuregeshwa katika risala zile zile za ufisadi, risala za kugawanya Wakenya, risala za kuleta vita. We are going to stand with the gospel of uniting the country called Kenya.
The coastal leaders also threw their weight behind the BBI legislative bill. They say that apart from championing for inclusivity, the BBI bill also promises good prospects for the common man.
Tunaunga mkono BBI kwa sababu BBI imetuletea 35% mashinani. Huduma mashinani, pesa mashinani, mwananchi kwanza. Vile vile imetuambia katika wadi zetu tutapata pesa zaidi ya milioni 20 ambayo itakuwa ni 5% ya kutoka kule juu katika ile pesa yote.
The two were speaking during a bursaries checks distribution exercise in Changamwe.
Well, this particular story is what we'll also be looking at, even as we look at how far the BBI is likely to go. But away from that, we'll also be looking at the levels of intolerance in the nation in terms of matters politics as we chart the way forward and what really needs to be done so that at least we have politics of sobriety. That should be after this break. I'll be joined by governance expert Kevin Osido alongside Honorable Member of Parliament of Tongaren, that is Seli Simiu, and also Member of Parliament, that is Kitui East Nimrod Mbai, after this break.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's.
So I already have one of my guests here, that is the governance expert. He's an early bird. The other two tell me that they're on their way. Some bit of traffic. I think it's only fair that we look at the roads and see whether they're lying to us or there could be some truth in what they say. What are these parts of Nairobi that have traffic? And yes, I can see that, yes, some of them, yes, there's one who could be coming from Mombasa Road. That is Kitui East Member of Parliament. So he would be justified because there's a bit of traffic alongside Mombasa Road. The sides of Imara Daima, it is jammed up evidently as you come from those sides of Mlolongo going down. Yes, so you get to this point, it is quite heavy on the road, and also on a different direction somewhere around Nairobi West there's also traffic around there. So I could agree, if he's taking this direction, then he must have been caught up in traffic. And also taking us to a different direction, that is Lusaka Road. Lusaka Road is not bad this morning, not looking as ugly as one would want to imagine. So it is not badly off this morning. It is Mombasa Road that is not looking good. The size of Makadara, that is Jogoo Road, is also not so good this morning, as you can see. So if you're taking that direction, you know that it is not going to be so good for you. If you can take a different direction altogether, it will be helpful for you. Let's drop ourselves at this round of maybe Thika Road. Yes, Thika Road is also extremely bad this morning, and so if you're taking Thika Road, you know what it is that you expect from these sides of Kasarani and going down. This is heavy traffic all the way to drive in. It is bad. This is somewhere around also Garden City there. That traffic is not looking so good as you get into these directions of Pangani headed to town. Muthaiga there, it's also not so good if you're taking Thika Road. So if you on that direction, then definitely probably I'd expect that my guest would get tied up somewhere around there. And this, as it gets to connect to this other direction, also it's not Muthaiga, that is Limuru Road, to Limuru Road. Limuru Road is not looking so bad this morning. So those ones who are coming from those sides of Ruaka, going down all the way Gigiri, are not badly off. We do not expect much of traffic on that direction. This is Wayaki Way. Wayaki Way is also not looking so bad this morning. So if you're taking these directions, you need not to worry. Somewhere around Museum Hill, also not so bad. Where is this? A Globe roundabout as you're coming from Thika Road, Ngara, all these other directions. When you get at around the Globe roundabout, there is a bit of traffic as you get into the city. So also you need to get worried about that, because in most cases it piles up, and then that means most of the different parts of the city then will be having traffic. Also along Langata Road, there is traffic as you headed to town. So if you're taking Langata Road, you know what it is that you expect coming to town. There is some tenets of traffic as you are walking in and dropping us at around Mbagathi Way. Mbagathi Way is not looking so bad this morning, so no cause for alarm if you're taking that direction. Gong Road is not as bad as we are used to, but there's some spots where you get traffic which is evidently moving, so no cause for alarm if you are around Ngong Road. And that is State House Road. State House Road is looking good this morning. There's not much cause for alarm if you are on that direction. So there's so much so on the roads. I'll be here to update you accordingly on what spots you should not go to, or what spots you should take advantage of. Outer Ring Road is here, is not looking so bad also, but there's some bit of spots where you get some bit of traffic if you're taking that direction. Kangundo Road the same, not so bad this morning, but also some bit of traffic around Komarok there, Njiru, you get a bit of traffic, but then again it eases up. The Eastern Bypass is also smooth, apart from a point where you get to around Mihango there is some tenets of traffic if you're taking that direction, so you need to get worried if you're there. And Bakassi Road, Airport Road is not as ugly this morning until that point where you come to connect to Mombasa Road along Imara Daima. There is a traffic there. Manyanja is also not so bad, but there is a spot where there is some level of traffic, so if you're taking that direction around Donholm too, you need to step out as early as now before it gets ugly. Let's leave it at that and come to the newspapers. As I said, we have the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, and the Daily Nation. And this is the Daily Nation, front page of the Daily Nation. I have Kevin Osido, who's a governance expert, to help us go through the same. We also get to hear his sentiments on that. One of the key stories that we'll be looking at this morning is this one on what it is that NCIC bill seeks to achieve. So proposed law adds social status as a basis for discrimination by amending the NCIC Act. That is 2008, Hustler, Thunderbolt, Poor versus Rich narrative, and many other narratives that seek to, create some level of division will be gagged by this particular bill. So Deputy President William Ruto's campaign slogan targeted by a new bill that prescribes 5 years in jail or about 5 million fine for any leader who propagates a class division in the country. Once convicted, such leaders will also be barred from holding political office. A story captured on page 6. Kevin Osido, do you see this as a gag against the Hustler dynasty narrative, or technically this is what we see when most of the politicians will always come out and have these narratives or propagate these narratives that in a way show a difference between one divide and the other?
Thank you so much, Linda. I think this is one of the challenges that we have as a country, in the sense that we want to tend to make laws for personalities, other than making laws for posterity. Right. And that is not very sustainable, because, for instance, if you look at the kind of proposals that we have, what if we change from dynasties to hustlers? Mm-hmm. Are we going to say that we are going to make another law now to curb that? It's a good thing that NCIC is beginning to look at the process of reviewing the NCIC Act of 2008, yes, which I think is a positive venture, is a positive thing to do, particularly looking at the history that this country has had when it comes to elections. And so in my view, we should look at how progressive are our laws and how do they respond to the common needs, the basic needs of the people. And that should not be, in my view, aimed at targeting individuals. It's supposed to target systems and processes that then make Kenyans look incohesive, incoherent, and people who cannot be able to be seen by others, our neighbors, as people who can live together in peace, love, and unity. I would have loved to see some proposals and recommendations around what Kenyans have felt. You know, what is hate speech, for example? When you stand in the podium, what does it mean?
Right.
What are the tenets of what we call hate speech? Number two is, I like the fines, the penalties, but we are not emphasizing on who makes these leaders. One, it is the people, and then two is the political parties. So we have to also see some kind of action that is going to be meted by the political parties. 5 million to a politician who is sitting in Kenya today is very little money. It is extremely little money, and that's why most of the times they run away with these crimes, because they are arrested, they walk into jail, and within a short time they are out, and we can mention very many examples. So I think that we need to also learn from our past and look at how progressive are these laws to be able to safeguard our prosperity as a people.
To gag the same politicians from holding political office and also public office at large is one thing that they seek to achieve. I don't know how instrumental that can be. The other day, after the unfortunate scenario in Kisii during the burial of the father of Deputy Governor, we saw pictures that were not so friendly coming from the very leaders, and that very morning, that is Monday morning, then the NCIC came with these stern measures, first of getting these leaders into the list of shame and saying that, you know, if you get into the list of the shame thrice, then you cease to have a chance of getting to hold any public office. But you know, later on we also saw what happened. I mean, it's as though these politicians are certain that really nothing much can come out of these laws. Is this body and a toothless body, or so to speak?
As it is right now, NCIC is more or less like a body that cannot be able to do certain functions. For instance, arresting, prosecuting. It's not like some of the other constitutional commissions, like Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, for which body has officers that have power to arrest and also prosecute and even carry investigations. As it is right now, NCIC is more or less like a body that is recommending and advising government, because they cannot be able to arrest anyone. They have to rely on arresting agencies. For instance, the National Police Service. They have to rely on DCI when it comes to investigations. They have to rely on DPP when it comes to prosecutions. And so you realize that as it is, the commission is more or less like a moribund body. It's a body that, as you rightfully said, acts like a toothless dog. But the beauty of it is that the chairman has been a very vocal person. And I think that is what works for Kenyans. Kenyans want to see when things are not working very well, they want to see somebody emerging as a leader within that crisis, within that chaos, to be able to provide direction. And Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, who is a good friend of mine, has been very, very progressive in terms of coming out and saying, this is what is happening, this is what we are doing as a commission, though we are not able to do ABCD. And that's why the law, which has been proposed, in my view, is coming to be able to cure some of those issues. But remember, Linda, that the people who therefore will be relied upon to pass these laws is the National Assembly. The National Assembly is 98.9% politicians. If the politicians feel that some of those recommendations are not fit for them, they are bound to fail, because they will just shoot them down. And so I think that what therefore needs to come is the commission needs to also insist that there is public participation when it comes to some of these recommendations, some of these amendments to the law, so that then the legislature is also seen to be responding to what Kenyans are feeling. Because otherwise, when we leave it to the commission alone, then there are going to be gaps which might not be filled by even some of the proposals that we have on the current legislation.
Okay, well, we wait to see what this will be and how this bill will sail through, and whether indeed it's going to be instrumental to curb the level of animosity that we see today. Intolerance is on the high, and is one thing that we need to stay woke about. But away from it, another key story that has been captured is in regards to the demise of Yusuf Haji, a power man for all season, a story that has been captured across all the other newspapers, and also that one of, taking us through the proceedings or what played out yesterday in the burial of Mzee Simeon Nyachae, and also that very night yesterday received, some bad news of the demise of Bonchari, Member of Parliament. I'd love for you to probably offer your words of condolences to these three families. It's within a very short span that as a nation we have lost great leaders, great minds for that matter.
As a young man, the demise of these great people reminds me about what public service means, and especially given what we are seeing today, where citizens can ask for health service delivery for over 3 years and nothing is being done, where people can ask for hush within the political terrain, narratives that are not making sense to most Kenyans, especially given the kind of context within which they are operating in, where food has become very expensive, fuel prices are increasing every day. And then suddenly we have people who have shown that actually the public sector can be able to work. Because if you look at Mheshimiwa Yusuf Haji, may his soul rest in peace. He's a gentleman who's grown through the ranks of public service, up to the apex of it, almost being a senator. And is a gentleman who, when you had people speaking yesterday, they would tell the so many stories, the kind of lessons that they've learned from him. And the same is also from Mheshimiwa Nyachae's stories as well. And so for me, as a young person, as a Kenyan who is interested in public service working, their demise is such a sorry picture. Unfortunately, there is nothing much we can do about it, but to pray that that God will rest their souls in eternal peace, and that He'll give strength to their families, and that we will be able to take certain very pertinent lessons from their lives and use them to make the public sector a better sector for the people of Kenya. All
right, Dr. Eseli Simiyu, Member of Parliament, Tongaren, equally joins us this morning. I'd love for him to weigh in his sentiments in regards to this key story, also as we also are getting this sad news that his colleague, Bonchari Member of Parliament John Oro Yoko, died in Aga Khan Hospital. Mheshimiwa, good to have you this morning. Unfortunately, we start on a sad note.
The 12th Parliament has really been a sad place to be, in the sense that we've lost so many people, and then nationally, we've also lost very many of what I would call elders, who would have been very instrumental in advising on the way forward for the country, because they had very wide experience, right from the late Simeon Nyachae and now Yusuf Haji and several others. Indeed, we are living in difficult times, and it's actually befitting that at least yesterday in Simeon Nyachae's burial, there wasn't a lot of politics bandied around. And I think it's about time we Kenyans realize that there are so many funerals that we should not take that chance to play politics at funerals. I think that was very respectful at the time of burying Simeon Nyachae. And I think as a nation, we need to realize that healthcare is a very, very critical part of any nation. It's unfortunate that many have not realized that, right from the governors up to the national government, because healthcare perhaps does not show immediate results, like building a road or building a stadium or things like those. But indeed, if the health of Kenyans is not taken care of, then we have a problem. And we need to refocus and ensure that our healthcare services are working well. That's the only way that we'll have people like in Japan, people living into their hundreds. Otherwise, right now, what we are having is that, in fact, for me, being in the 60s, I guess I'm living on borrowed time. Yet in the more developed Western countries and so on, it's after 80 is when you can start thinking of living on borrowed time. But that's because of healthcare services. And these healthcare services, while they do not give immediate bonga points to the leaders, as it were, they actually give the country, I would say, a reserve of people that they can consult, people that they can actually rely on to give them advice on what is happening.
Right.
So losing our elders in such quick succession is an indictment on our healthcare service, because when you look at it all, many of them had actually gone for treatment abroad, not within the country, and that's an indictment on our health services. So we need to relook at it in the sense that if you went to the private healthcare services in this country, you'll pay much more than if you went abroad, which is very unfortunate, because it means that we are simply not taking healthcare services seriously, and you can see our healthcare workers out on the streets basically just not satisfied with their working conditions. And I think we need to relook at this. We need to refocus our healthcare services to be more responsive to the people's needs than what we are doing right now.
All right, well, do you agree that hugely we did not play much of politics? Maybe in a minute or so, we saw Baba winding up by saying BBI. In a way, we also saw the DP trying his level best to print out a scenario of Nyachae being a hustler.
Well, it's interesting because Nyachae was a son of a chief, and I've seen the DP criticizing anybody who was a son of a chief.
So again,
those are double standards.
Well, he said in as much as maybe the dad was rich, he tried his level best to amass his own. Trying to remind us of the kinds of businesses
so
that
I think that comes down to the same thing we've been saying. It doesn't matter the circumstances that you started your life in. It matters what kind of race you run on your own, whether you came from a rich family, whether you came from a poor family, it doesn't matter. And using your poor background as a weapon to cajole and bamboozle and to intimidate is not right.
All right, 1 minute as we go for a break.
By the way, the deputy president is second in highest, politically speaking, and government is supposed to create an amicable environment for people to be able to make meaningful means out of whatever is in their hands. And so brandishing others as hustlers and others as dynasties, especially when you sit at the apex of decision making, where you have the power, the opportunity, the privilege and the right to make proper policies and proper laws, I think is such a hypocritical way of looking at it. It's not progressive in my view.
Okay. All right, well, and on that note, we take a quick break. We'll be coming back with more even as we get to the discussion.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. we tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
DStv, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Still with the papers, or going through the papers with Honorable Dr. Iseli Simiyu, Member of Parliament Tongaren, and governance expert Kevin Osido, as we await Member of Parliament of Kitui East to join us for more on the conversation. Briefly, Africa Trade Area, or Africa Free Trade Area, is here with both losers and gainers. Kenya products won't compete favorably with other African products. So that is a story that is captured on page 2 of the Daily Nation. The cost of production in Kenya is so high, making it unsustainable to produce at the same price as other countries. So much so is happening towards us getting that integration aspect as Africans. I mean, getting to that level where we can speak of even having a common currency, having an Africa country where you can easily traverse without having to worry about visas and all these, restrictions that will probably be there. But just how realistic is this a story or a scenario that we've been talking about for the longest of time at the level of the African Union? Is this a good thing? Is this something to celebrate? But then again, how then do you celebrate when we're leaving other countries out? Honorable Iseli.
I think this is something that's coming late in our time.
Yeah.
Africa as a whole is a huge market. And once we are divided, it's been to the benefit of the other countries in the world. But if we are to make this useful, then it also looking at countries like Kenya, we need to look at ways of reducing the cost of production. Start with electricity. The cost of electricity in Kenya is madness. It's total madness.
Right. And it's set to go high, by the way. There's a story that has been captured on one of the papers, yes.
That's why we need to relook at it.
Yes.
It's not a question of sloganeering on political platforms about it. Oh, we are going to increase electricity production to this amount. We are going to connect, I don't know how many domestic whatevers.
Yeah.
Those domestic whatevers you are connecting that power to, are they able to afford it? Because many of them have had their electricity disconnected because they can't afford it. Yeah. So now is the time to get down to brass tacks and work it out so that we actually indeed have cheap power, so that our production costs are lowered. Then various other things that lead to high production costs. There are many licenses, like you have to get accounting something, you have to get something from the national government and so on. This is the time now to relook at it so that we can reduce production and ensure that our goods are competitive. Because even as we speak, the cost of diesel just went up the other day, just before the plowing season and planting season. So the cost of even agricultural production goes out of hand. So this is the time, if Kenya indeed wants to compete in Africa properly, fairly, now is the time to sit down and look at what are the things we need to do to reduce the production costs. It's very important because these things build on themselves. One is the cost of feeding a family, say in the city like Nairobi, is so high because of the cost of production of the agricultural products, even getting them to the market. So we need to look at all these things holistically, such that the cost of food production itself is lowered, then the cost of food becomes cheaper, and everything will build on that. And there are so many things we need to look at, and now is the time. I think we as Kenyans need to get out of sloganeering and start roll up our sleeves and start working at it. We know what we need to do, but we never get to do it. Then when we want to do it, there are so many roadblocks on the way, rent seekers on the way, people collecting something on the way, that it just removes everything. So right now, I would say that this is a wake-up call for Kenya.
All right.
We need to wake up.
And I think I agree. One, it has been a continent of kickbacks, and most of the investors have actually even feared coming to invest in most of the African countries because of that. You will always get this roadblock somewhere along the way. Leaving alone the aspect of, how difficult this can be for Kenya as a country, but just the African, view at large, and looking at how many times we have tried to push for the same, looking at how many times we've had other countries trying to pull out, from some of these agreements that we set as a continent, and just how instrumental then this would be for us to be able to beat the superpowers, because in most cases you realize that the argument is actually not in most cases the truth. The resources lie in Africa, but sadly enough, they don't benefit us in any way.
Linda, we have to, as Africa and Africans, identify our own champions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these agreements are agreements that are, one, proposed by outsiders. And when I say outsiders here, I mean powers who are outside Africa.
Yeah.
And then two, the people who champion for them are actually non-Africans. If you look at AGOA, for instance, is Americans.
Right.
Africa Trade Agreement is largely Africans, but let's not forget that actually yesterday, I think it's we have the first African lady who is now the Director General of WTO. The question is, what will Africa do with many of these conventions? Do they really provide opportunities for us to strengthen our power, our economic power? And economic power also has a lot to do with social power. How do we relate even among ourselves?
Right.
And among ourselves means farmers, agriculturalists, people in the tea, coffee industry, people in agrarian farming, people who are doing fish farming, aquaculture and all that. Kenya, a few years ago, hosted the Blue Economy Conference at a very high level. And the question is, how committed again are Africans to some of these, recommendations and the memoranda documents that we sign in the presence of all these powers. And most of the people who therefore come out to be able to champion for most of this are not Africans. So the question, Linda, is, do these agreements, do these commitments, do these conventions even mean anything to Africans? And so the answer to that question to me is devolving most of these things to the level where the action is, so that then the value chain is also, circular and it is continuing. So that when we are having high-level conferences at KICC, can we have replicas taking place in Kimilili, so that the farmers, the tea farmers there, can actually relate to and with what is taking place and is being discussed at that high-level national conversation. When it's happening in Nigeria and it is something that is therefore African, and so Kenyans need to take action because of the regional blocks, East and Central Africa, where Kenya is touted to be the superpower. Do those conventions really mean sense to the region? Do Ugandans understand what they are, that the interactions between Kenyans and Ugandans to a larger extent will affect the border conversations? Do Tanzanians in whether Namanga or Arusha understand that what is happening in their country actually affects what is happening in Kenya, and therefore at the regional level and then global? So I think the conversations are good, but the problem is that they are taking place at a very high level where really the action is not being felt. And so when we look at the policy conversations against the practicals, there is such a huge gap. And that's why, in my view, I think most of them are not progressive. They are not responsive to the feelings of the people. And so Africans, Kenyans, we need to identify our champions, people who will stand strong to be able to say yes when the agreements are working and no when they are not working. Because why they work for certain people, particularly Americans and sometimes Britons, is because they know what they are looking for after all those conversations or after all those agreements. Do Africans, do Kenyans also look at them from that particular lens? And I think, as you rightfully said, kickbacks for Africans works, but progress and prosperity for non-Africans, the powers that be, is what is working for them. And that's really where the difference is, that when we make policies also, let those policies be policies that make ease of doing business is enhanced, as opposed to some middlemen and women coming up to be saying, I'm the one who knows the minister, the CS for industrialization. I can help you get cheaper rates and cheaper costs for your power. I am the one who knows the CS for agriculture. I can help you get better fertilizer, because he's a person who has to say what it is. Let the environment be made progressive. Let the environment be made easy for anyone who wants to venture into whatever sort of business it is. And that way, I think, the more we are involving each other, the better it will be for us. Because if Mheshimiwa doesn't have seeds for coffee and I have better seeds, I can be able to provide. As opposed to saying, pay more and then I give you what I have. And then ultimately, once you pay more and you're given what you have, you cannot produce it. I mean, the cost of production, as Mheshimiwa says, then becomes so high. And ultimately, in 2 to 3 years, you have nothing to produce. And that's what I think is affecting us. Because in this country, we have had a lot of conversations around importation of maize. People have even been accused of selling rotten maize to Kenyans, flour in shops that are full of aflatoxin, but nothing is done. We've had conversations in this country about rice, rice which is brought from other countries, and nothing is done to people who are killing our rice industries in Muhoroni, in Chemelil, in Embu areas. We have had conversations around sugar, which is being brought from outside the country, but nothing is done to people who are killing our local production industries.
All right, well, in most cases we say when such happens, it is important that we pick conversations around the same. This one is one that I cannot fail to speak about. Endangered. There are only 2 female northern white rhinos left in the world. Surrogates found for Rhino Sudan's offspring. I think this is a good one. I don't know whether you people remember at that time when everyone was mourning the death of Sudan. Do you remember Sudan the rhino? Or you probably that did not have it must have crossed you. But yes, this is indeed some good news. We want to conduct an embryo transfer into the southern white rhino females, ones that they have been looked at as animals that are set to extinct. But then this is indeed some good news. As we drop the Daily Nation, briefly we look at what is captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper, more or less the same story: Haji, peace broker and schemer. We have talked about that. From one selection, why your child could be stuck in the village. That is also another story that is here, even as we talk about the incorporation of the competency-based curriculum and the progresses that we expect on matters education. We might not go into depth with that. And this story that you're talking about the cost of fuel and the cost of electricity becoming high, is one that has been captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper, expounded on page, it should be 36 or 34 there. You have it right. And so cost of fuel and power may rise over draft rules. That is also one that we need to probably have a conversation revolving around. The People Daily. Inside illicit bag, hugely lucrative charcoal trade. I think again this one, comes to that particular discussion that we have on the Africa free trade. We might not be able to expound some more on it, but then it is happening, and it's very unfortunate that we have these reports that expose how commodity that is being used in the Middle East as a vicious scramble between a cartel drawing corruption or corrupt traders, police, politicians, and officials charged with saving Kenya's forests. That is one thing. We are losing our forest. We had a campaign the other day that was started by the CS for matters that should be, yes, Kiriako Tobiko. That was sometimes the forestry, yes, an anti-logging campaign. I don't know how far we're able to take that, but then we're talking about it. Border borders to be trained on safety and investment, pretty much important of a conversation to have. I think that one we will drop and allow us to get into a conversation. And we discuss just how genuine we are in the politics of the day today, that in relation to what is happening within our very own parties. I'm sure we've talked about this, Mheshimiwa, for the longest of time, but it is unfortunate to note that even as we continue talking about the same, this continues to happen even more. The intolerance that we witness within our very own political parties, the factions that continue to, come up within this particular political party is not so bad. It is healthy in terms of matters democracy, but it does not seem to take a good trajectory. I'd love for us to know what is happening in Fort Kenya as at now. You've been very silent.
We are silent because there are court cases that we need to deal with. Because what happened in Fort Kenya was that the National Executive Council decided to relieve the leader of Ford Kenya of those duties because they felt that they felt that he has failed in running the party. But you also need to remember that of all the political parties in Kenya, Ford Kenya is the second oldest party and has gone through several transitions. It's not the first time. Only that every transition in Ford Kenya has not been very smooth. Every transition, right from inception. From inception between Jaramogi Odinga and Ken Matiba, there was acrimony, and that gave birth to Ford Asili and Ford Kenya. Then you come to the transition between the late Jaramogi to Wamalwa Kijana. There was a lot of push and pull between Wamalwa Kijana and Raila Odinga. Then after Wamalwa Kijana, when Muskari Kombo took over, there was a tiff between him and Muhisa Kitui and the late Soita Shitanda.
Right.
When Wetangula was taking over from Kombo, it was also a long-drawn issue. So there's always been a problem with transition, and I've always argued that there's an inherent fault in the Ford Kenya Constitution that we need to relook at. And I'm hoping at the next NDC, the members will agree to work on that constitution so that we don't have these acrimonious transitions. But all that said and done, of all the parties, Ford Kenya is the one that has actually had transitions, acrimonious as they might be, but they have always had transitions. And right now the acrimony that's happening is because previously Ford Kenya had NDCs that led to the transitions every 4 years. Every 4 years like clockwork. But since 2011, when Honorable Senator Masika Wetangula took over, there has been no NDC for now 10 years. Which is an aberration, because from the inception of Ford Kenya, there was always an NDC every 4 years. But it has not been there for over 10 years. And I think that's what has led to the acrimony. Because if you don't have transition, even if you are not changing the top leadership, but you are infusing new blood into the management of the party, then you'll find you'll get dissatisfaction. And I think that's what we are facing right now. Even if we argue that because of COVID we were unable to have an NDC and things like that, COVID came long after the NDC for Ford Kenya was long overdue. So it's an issue that has to be looked at. But I believe that the transition will occur because we can't go on that way.
All right. Well, I'd look at it as a race of turtles because then again you can hear Mheshimiwa proud saying that at least this is the only party that has had proper transitions, or so to speak, as acrimonious as they may look. Probably year in, year out, we would have expected that they have noticed there's a problem in the transition processes and maybe tried their level best to fix this. But because they look around and they see no other party that has proper transitions, then they sit comfortable knowing that at least we are better off in comparison to the other parties that are in existence. Probably this informs the reason why I talked about politics of betrayal and greed. Is this a show of so much greed and betrayal that plays out in this particular party, such that even when it comes to the process of transition, there are some people who would choose to go out, some of them would be there, but then again, the level of betrayal that is witnessed within, the level of, talk of greed that is witnessed within, is one that speaks of a party that lacks proper structures?
Actually, that, in my view, is a response. Structures. A political party is an institution. It is an institution of governance within itself among those who have agreed to operate for the objectives as to why that party or that organization exists. Like a family, you cannot have a child who walks in when he or she wants, it is 2 a.m., she's not gotten home, doesn't want to be asked, where are you coming from? It is not proper. Two, the other challenge that affects our political parties is the manner in which they are organized. A lot of these parties revolve around personalities. And this is true to the fact, and Mheshimiwa is here to confirm for the sake of Ford Kenya, not to mention all the other parties that are not represented here because I don't belong to either of the 61 registered, so I won't speak for them. But you see the manner in which they operate. It's always an individual who is the one around coordinating almost everything, and everything operates around this individual. So we must begin to look at how do we move out of this personification of political parties to individuals?
Right.
Number 3 is the membership. How are these members relating to the political party? At what point do you say that you have been betrayed? And betrayed over what? By who? For what particular gain? In Kenya, betrayal comes when we begin to ask for a space of power. That is political power. And in our country, power is therefore exuded at 2 levels. The presidency, and today, because of devolution, post-2010 constitution, 2013, 2017, we have governors. And so MCAs at the level where they operate, many times you don't hear a lot of this talk we are calling betrayal coming to the fore because of the manner in which the capacity of power is exercised and exuded at those 2 levels,
right.
Presidential and gubernatorial. And so if you look at the people who own, quote unquote, these political parties outside the membership, because membership is by subscription and you pay certain fees to either be an ordinary member or a life member and all that. I hope that Ford Kenya also has that kind of structuralization.
Yeah.
And so when you are a life member who has been promised certain power or a certain space and sit close to what the political power of the party is, and you don't get it, and in Kenya, what happens is that somebody else gets it, and then you begin to say you have been betrayed.
Yeah.
But then as a member of this political party, what is your commitment? Is your commitment going to begin to ask for greed? And so you are trying to shortchange and shortcut your political party leader and the other members, especially the person that you have a feeling was brought closer to the seat that you are supposed to take.
Yeah.
And so in finishing, Linda, you don't see many times political parties responding to the needs of the citizens. So even the talk around betrayal and greed is purely around political space as opposed to service delivery. But when you begin to have Kenyans and citizens feeling happy about your political party and saying, Mheshimiwa, you spoke well about healthcare, which is not working. Mheshimiwa, you spoke so well about the rising cost of energy, and we feel that your party is responding to our needs.
Right.
Then that way, the conversation will tilt. And so people will begin to associate with your party, not based on political power, but
right.
based on how a champion you are against and for the things which are working for them and against things which are not working for the citizens. And so that's why many times even membership of political parties is only ascribed to regions.
Right.
So Ford Kenya, most of those who are members of Ford Kenya would probably be lawyers. If you go to ODM, most of those who are ODM members would probably be Luos.
Right.
Because the political party has been organized around an individual who is from that particular tribe, and even the manner in which activities of the party are exhibited to the citizens revolve around the manner in which the behavior of the bigger chunk of the membership of that party behave in that particular manner.
Honorable Eseli Simiyu would tell you that at least Ford Kenya is that one party that enjoys, support across different parts of the countries, with offices across different parts of the countries. In as much as you say that when you hear Ford Kenya, which is true, you would want to...
Perception of Kenyans has been that Ford Kenya is a Western party. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at it, yes, the majority members might come from the Western part, but you'll find that by the political parties act, by the registrar, that every political party should have registered members, at least 1,024 counties or so. Ford Kenya surpassed that and went to 35 counties. Where we have over 1,000 members. So I think what has happened is that the diminishing fortunes of Ford Kenya has been a fault of us, the leadership, in the sense that we've not been reaching out to our branches out there. Right now, if you go to a place like Kilifi, Ford Kenya has got a very serious following, but we've not exploited it. And what I'm trying to say here is this lack of having an internal election, NDC and so on, so you infuse new people into the system, has been part of what is killing the party. So it's a question of, yes, you are right, every party will have a certain following from a certain area, but a majority. But still, you will still have a wider following nationally. You would be surprised that in a place like Garissa, we actually have over 3,000 members in Garissa. Garissa County. Right. I'm just giving you as an example because as Secretary General I've got all those details. So it is a question of we've not been able to excite our base in the last 10 years, because we've not been visiting them, we've not been bringing them on board, and they feel they have been disenfranchised, so the activities have gone down. But this can be reworked. I would say that very few parties have that kind of network. I think if I compare Ford Kenya with others, perhaps the only other ones that would have that similar kind of network is KANU and ODM.
Right.
The rest are a bit shaky, because one, many of them have never had even an internal election at all. Many of them have never had any whatever of changing leadership and so on. As I told you that we, as Ford Kenya, we've had these transitions before, acrimonious as they are. And even the one we are, the change of guard we are going through now, by the time it gets to May, it will have been about a year since the transition started. But there will be a transition, because a party cannot continue over 10 years without any internal elections, without any transition to move. Like, for example, I should be able to exit and somebody else takes over. So we need to infuse younger blood, given that the majority of voters in this country right now are young people. So to excite them, you have to actually put younger people into those positions. And a party that's going to survive in future has to do that deliberately. If we don't do that deliberately, then we'll be left by the roadside.
All right, well, and speaking of which, let's acknowledge the presence of Honorable Nimrod Bai, who's the Member of Parliament, Kitui. It's good to have you, Mheshimiwa, this morning. Karibu sana. We have eagerly waited for you, and finally you're here.
Yeah, sorry, Linda. I've been traffic.
It's okay.
Good, I'm here. I'm happy to find my friends around. Mheshimiwa Simeo is actually, I look forward to him. He's an elder in Parliament. Some of the guys who've been there longer than us. Yeah, and I'm happy with the discussion. So we can pick it up from there.
Right.
I'm here. Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
All right, good morning. And before we come to you, briefly on this one, I'd love to know why you are not a member of any other party. And I mean, how then is one declared a member of a party? I mean, the common mwananchi, a citizen, is it the fact that you just wake up and say, I would want to say that I believe in the ideologies of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and so I think I am an ODM member. I'd want to say that, well, I am a supporter of the Hustler Nation, and so I am a member of, I don't know whether Jubilee or UDA. Mheshimiwa Mbai will tell us. I mean, what makes an individual, a citizen, a member of a certain party?
Many things, Linda. One of the things that really should be able to compel an individual is a personal conviction. And that conviction is also stirred by the behavior of a political party. So how responsive is this party to my needs as an individual? How responsive is this party to the needs of my nation? So Kenya, for instance, how do they take action on things that matter to citizens? And in underscoring that, you look at the ideology of the political party. Conventionally, there are lots of ideologies. You could be Republicans, you could be Democrats, you could be Social Democrats, you could be Socialists, you could be anything that is an ideology of that particular party. And then that is what, in my view, should be able to excite me as Kevin to be able to join a party. In
and
Kenya,
out of the 61, none of them has been able to excite you?
In Kenya, none of those have been able to excite me. In the sense that you look at what is the identity of Ford Kenya, for example, and maybe because Mheshimiwa Eseli is here, he'll tell us what is the ideology of Ford Kenya. In some parts of this country, rather in some parts of the world, you hear people calling themselves green parties. It's because of everything they wear is green. But is that really what greenness of a political party as an ideology is? How then do you champion for climate change issues? When you talk about social democracy, how social democratic is your ideology as a political party, and how do you fight for even things like labor rights? In a country like Kenya, where doctors can strike for 100 days, and we have political parties that are registered, some of them sit at very high level decision-making spaces in the health committee, both at the National Assembly, Senate, county assemblies. Some of the people who become ministers and cabinet secretaries in our government today have been members of most of these political parties. What is the ideology that should be able to drive them? But in finishing, the nature of the work that I do, makes me to be a political. So I walk into a hall and I'm supposed to help people understand politics. I can't tell them I'm a member of Ford Kenya or a member of ODM or a member of CCU or a Chama cha Uzalendo or a member of which other party, KANU or ANAK Kenya and all that. Because I need to be able to identify and I need to be able to speak truth to that political party without any conflict of interest or a manner that or anything that will then make me look like I'm either being biased towards a party. But Linda, I'm considering one of the political parties. If after this show, Mheshimiwa convinces me very well to be able to join Ford Kenya, why not? Or if he's in UDA, you say?
I'm worried. I mean, tell us, Mheshimiwa. You will convince him to get to which party? Jubilee, UDA, or which one in particular?
Basically, we are in Jubilee.
Okay.
I'm a Jubilee member.
Would you convince him to get to Jubilee today?
Is that Jubilee? Of course he's in Jubilee. And by extension, elected through the Jubilee ticket.
Right.
And we have a village. You can see KANU is today in Jubilee, ODM is in Jubilee, Wiper is in Jubilee, Ford Kenya is in Jubilee. The other day, UDA, we just came to understand that UDA is in Jubilee.
Okay.
Jubilee. So every party is Jubilee today. And so Kenya is one country.
Oh.
One mega party, which is Jubilee. All the others are villages. It's a coalition of all these parties around the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is now the confusion that we want to.
I think first I would say that for many who don't understand Ford Kenya, is that one main tenet of Ford Kenya is social justice. And indeed, if you repicture back the rundown to 2002, when Ford Kenya teamed up with DP and then Gilu's party to form NAK, and we came up with a manifesto. You'll be surprised that part of that manifesto, a lot of it was borrowed from the Ford Kenya manifesto, in the sense that when we eventually ended up with the free primary education and things like those, free healthcare is what we've not yet attained, but that was one of the things that we were pushing for, because we believe that free market economy is good, but cannot provide certain things. Like free market economy will not be able to provide quality healthcare for Kenyans. Free market economy will not provide quality education for Kenyans. So that social justice part is one of the anchor tenets of Ford Kenya. So it's a question of how do we go about it? Because yes, we were able to institute the free primary education, then we were supposed to go on so that we get up to university level. In fact, in one of my first time in Parliament, I came up with a motion that now compelled government to ensure that Higher Education Loans Board gives loans to non-university sector. And that time, William Samoei Ruto became the Minister for Higher Education and Technology and implemented it. Because using the implementation committee in Parliament, we ensured that was implemented, so that you found that now tertiary colleges also benefiting from that. That's part of the beliefs of Ford Kenya. It's just that we've not trumpeted it enough. Right. But perhaps we need to trumpet it.
You perhaps need to do that, because you've mentioned the key things that you keep saying that, perhaps we have not capitalized on this.
We had a bill then of how to rework NHIF to sort of work like the NHS in the UK, which we need to revisit again. Once we get into government again, which we believe we will, once we get into government again, either as Ford Kenya or in partnership with anybody else, we'll push that part of the healthcare. Because healthcare right now is sick. It's really a problem. So those are the core tenets of Ford Kenya. Right from inception. Remember, from the time the Ford Kenya was created, was the time when it was a single party country under KANU, which didn't seem to have any ideology at all. But Ford Kenya came in with an ideology, which we've kept burning. Many other parties have actually tried to copy that and use, but eventually I would say that it's Ford Kenya that has managed, in partnership with Mwai Kibaki when he took over in 2002, that some of those beliefs were actually incorporated into how the government acted. And I would say that I would pay tribute to those ministers who had come from Fort Kenya and were ministers in the Kibaki regime. They actually tried to implement that.
Yeah.
Take the other day, Mukhisa Kitui declared that he wants to run for presidency.
Right.
And when he was Minister for Trade and Industry, he reduced the time taken for any organization to start doing business in Kenya. Okay. Reduced those licenses and all that. That was part of the issue, part of what Fort Kenya believes in. So indeed, the only time that Fort Kenya has been close to power, been part of the power, with the ministers who have been put there from the party have implemented quite a lot of the Fort Kenya philosophy. Perhaps what we've not done, as I said, is blown our trumpets about it. But I think the next time we are in government, we'll ensure that we blow our trumpet about it, because I think we are one party.
When is next time?
Yeah, which is from 2022.
All right. Speaking of which, we say once a soldier, always a soldier. Now that you've mentioned Mukhisa Kitui, I'm sure we'll be looking into the coming in of him, as his quest for 2022 is evidently out there in the public domain, and we get to see, well, he is, so to speak, a person who's been in Fort Kenya, like you have rightly
like when we are talking about the free trade, whatever, this is the time we need brains like Mukhisa Kitui.
Yes.
To see what we can do for Kenya to benefit and implement it. Kenyans, we are good at sloganeering, but not really implementing. We talk things that we don't implement. Like, I'm very surprised that right now we are still going around saying how many people we have tumeunganisha watu wangapi stima and things like that. That has been done in sectors of this country, not the whole country.
Yes.
So it's not good to just sloganeer. Let's have things actually done. When we talk about how many kilometers of tarmac we've done, but we are avoiding to say where those kilometers of tarmac are. Yeah. Are they throughout the country? So this sloganeering needs to go. And we need to be implementing things equitably throughout the country.
Right.
If you remember, during Mwai Kibaki's time is when the issue of CDF came up. And up to now, nobody has actually come out to show the impact of CDF when it came to rebasing Kenya to a lower middle income.
Right.
What contribution did CDF make to that? Because I believe that the contribution was substantial.
Immense. Well, members of parliament should be able to tell us that. Honorable Bai should be able to tell us that. And the economy, well,
the economists in this country, have been neglected. No, they have been neglected. They have been pushed aside.
All right.
You see, people do politics and economics and political science. Somehow, we are concentrating on the politics. We've forgotten about the economics, such that the economists in the treasury are virtually redundant.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, hold it right there. You spoke about Mukhisa Kitui. Let's not go without mentioning that, a little bit, and getting to understand just how genuine the leaders in Western Kenya would be to back up his move for presidency. Probably a card that one would look at as, one thing that would be looked at as a sure bet for the Western region to be able to clinch the top seat, so to speak. Let's listen into this particular bite, come expound on that, and later on, Honorable Bai will just look at how genuine we are when we say that as a people we are Jubilee Party.
Hata nimeona Mukhisa mheshimiwa ametoka London, sijui ni Australia, sijui ni wapi, Dubai, wherever, Brazil, huko kwenye amekuwa, naona amekuja, hata yeye ametangaza anataka kuwania urais. Na mimi nasema hivi, ndugu Mukhisa ako na haki ya kuwania kitu chochote. Hiyo ni demokrasia. Demokrasia huwezi kataza mtu. Hata Reagan anaweza sema yeye anataka kuwa mbunge, ni demokrasia na ni haki yake. Lakini Mukhisa, what I want you to know, we have moved on. Sisi watu wa Western, we have already moved on. We have made up our mind. We are behind Musalia na ndugu yake Wetangula. Those are our leaders. Hii yako ni kama Mkarung'ang'a. Kuna mtu alikuwa anaitwa Mkarung'ang'a. Wakati Kibaki alikuwa anasimama, kuna mwingine anaitwa Mkarung'ang'a na Chibule Wasuma. Sasa wewe Mukhisa, you are Chibule Wasuma and Mkarung'ang'a. Na yeye kwa sababu ni kijana yetu ya diaspora, hakujangi matanga. Mukhisa hakujangi matanga. Mumewahi ona Mukhisa kwa matanga? Sasa akikuja hapa asiwapatie 200, awapatie 1000. Kila mtu kabla Mkisa hajaongea mnampiga fine ya 1000. Mnasikia? Mkisikia Mkisa ako Kakamega mnaenda nyinyi wote ni mbona ni huko Nyanga. Wewe 1000 kabla hujaongea. Bei ya kuongea ni 1000 kwa kila mwananchi. Kwa sababu akujangi matanga. Akujangi matanga. Mweza sasa maskata. Mweza ndaki matanga. Hata kuna mtu ya Kisungu, mtu ya diaspora, mtu ya Geneva, ajui Mkava ni wapi, hata huku Bungoma kwao. Kimilili hakujenga hata choo, hata kama hii darasa limejenga Kimilili hakuna. Sasa yeye ni Mkaru, Ng'ang'a na Chibule Watsuma. Vijana oye! Nasa hao! Nasa Mkisa! Nasa Mkisa! Nasa Mkisa!
Well, an ethno-majoritarian society we are. Muhisa declared that the first stop, or his first stop, should be Western region, so he can get advice, he can get, blessings, he can be told you can proceed and do this. From what it is that Honorable Leseli Simiyu says, Ford Kenya will probably be fronting, a powerful individual that is in 2022 when they seek to get into government. On the other hand, you can hear such utterances. Just what space is there for Muhisa Kitui and for the Mulembe nation at large to be able to get a hold of this? And I'll ask you, Honorable Mbai, because then again such is also the scenario in the Ukambani region.
Linda, one of the things we need to realize in our country, and with my good friend here, Honorable Leseli, these very good brains don't do very well in our political landscape.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you find the likes of Muhisa Kitui cannot argue the way Mheshimiwa is arguing there. Yes, in wakujangi matanga, ujejenga cho. Muhisa Kitui is not somebody who will go to that level. But that's what mwananchi wants to hear.
Okay.
And that's what mwananchi listens to. And that's what Mama is voting for. So it gets difficult for such a bright fella to make it. But one of the things that our friend is doing there is marketed Muhisa Kitui even before Muhisa Kitui lands in Kenya. He's already taken him to the villages and he's making him a presidential candidate. He's campaigning for him. He's popularized his name. Coming to what you are asking, Linda, I've faced some frustrations as a new member of parliament. Because what I thought is what happens in Parliament is not actually what happens, not unless the other parliaments have had something different. And Leseli will tell us. You try to push some of the ideas which you want mwananchi to benefit from your local thinking or your international thinking, whatever experience that is driving you. Then you are trying to push the idea, maybe through a motion, maybe through a bill, and for it to go through, it's not easy. It will take ages. We'll find bills which were there we are in the 12th Parliament, bills which were introduced in the 10th Parliament. Up to now, they have not been enacted.
Right.
And the fella who brought them on the floor lost the seat and is home. He can't push it anymore. So he went home before pushing his idea through. And that's what hurts our country. If Parliament was Parliament, if Parliament was, because you find the government as a way of pushing bills through even in less than a week. You find this has originated from government, in less than a week it has gone through. You find a very smart fella is trying to influence something in our society through enacting or changing some law or just policy, but it's so difficult for a party or for an individual member of parliament to push through. And that is happening even to our assemblies. The very, very small macro, whatever is happening in the villages, that needs to be governed by our county governments. You find parties are getting it difficult to push this thing through just because of the political party management and landscape. Is BAMBA happy with that kind of bill? Okay. Is Kalonzo happy with this newcomer MP bringing a new bill and trying to push it through? Is the government machinery happy with how will your bill affect the government operations? What are the intentions? You are from which mulengo of the system and how we see who is the driving force. And from that, you find even in the committees, there's a lot of bureaucracy in Parliament. You know, the Committee of Privilege, there are so many committees which can tell what is happening. Even before you are given the go-ahead as a member of Parliament to push something through, it goes through so many committees of some retired fellas who just found their way to Parliament.
All right, so when you speak about this, then we ask ourselves, as a people who elect you, what we expect. It's a polite way of telling us that, well, in as much as you elect us with good, manifestos that we present with you, to you, with the promises that we have for you, with the policies that have been said, you might as well not expect anything.
I think what we need, from my thinking, is political goodwill from the top seat, from the government. Because when the presidency allows the bureaucracy, that is the executive, to interfere with the legislature, that's where things get difficult. Because you find at any particular time, there is somebody from the executive, be it intelligence, be it whichever department, seated somewhere observing what Parliament is doing. And that fella is reporting. Yeah, this is the truth of the matter. And somebody somewhere, the new animal in town is watching over what is happening. And if whatever you are pushing through is not, the animal is not happy with it, then it finds challenges through some bureaucracies around there. You find an officer from a very high office coming to sit in the office of the leader of majority to discuss what should be pushed through. An office of the executive approving what is going to go through in the calendar of the National Assembly, for heaven's sake. I think one of the things we need to look at facing into 2022 is a president who is liberal enough to allow the legislature to go along without interference from the executive. Somebody who has no fear of what the executive is doing, because of the legislative arm of the government is doing. Somebody who has no fear with what even the judiciary is doing. You found officers trying to interfere with the judiciary, which is the last resort in case a Kenyan wants to get justice.
On several occurrences, you've heard us speak, or maybe people say that we probably need a benevolent dictator in a way. When you speak about this, and I'd want to believe it's about President Uhuru Kenyatta because he's the one who's at the top of the helm. When you speak in this sense, then I wonder, in the event that we get this benevolent dictator, then what happens in this case? Because if President Uhuru Kenyatta has been looked at as a person who doesn't so much, crack the whip as expected, and most of the people, even members of Parliament, have been seen, weighing even insults to him, and he does not do much or does not say much. So when we speak of this and we look at a scenario where we get a benevolent dictator, just how much progress are we likely to get as we come to you?
I think Kenya is past the era of a benevolent dictator. The dictator will find it rough, and the dictator has to shape up. Today, the country we have, the far our democracy has come, there's no way a benevolent dictator can make it.
Then why is it that we're not able to make the executive shape up?
I think I will put it more not to the president, the person of the president. You remember when Obama was elected in his first time in office, he said that the things he was agitating for as a presidential candidate to come and implement when he gets into the helm of leadership have been curtailed by the system. The military advisors are against some of the things Obama never thought he wants to go straight, and the Guantanamo Bay detention, Obama was like, we close it in the first 100 days. But it was there until Obama went home. Because that's the system, this system thing is all over the world. It runs governments. We have an executive which has been there since Moi time, since Kenyatta time. And some of these guys are just around there. And they will live there. And they have lived there. And they have been used to playing around with the minds of the president. The president comes in, a new guy, And they will tell you, as Mr. President,
this is how we do it.
Oh no, we don't take care of you. We don't cushion you from the likes of Eseli. You will be taken around, and this country will, Then the president gets into a cocoon and kind of fear. We need a president who will be like, yes, I'm getting you right, but look at it. The Mwananchi has elected me. Kindly please allow me to run some things without you trying to advise me. Actually, I do them and take care of the issues later.
Allow me to loop in, Mheshimiwa, allow me to loop in the governance expert. And when you see Honorable Eseli Simiyu silent, is probably because he agrees to what it is that Honorable Mbai speaks about. And so in that case, I'd want to get your view, on the lenses of a governance expert. What does it speak of what we expect of the future, of the changes that we desire as a people, of the fact that we look forward to see, our health sector being looked into, that we do not speak of a health sector that is sick today. We seek to have a development. The very same people who we have elected in are the same that are crying foul. What is left of the common Mwananchi? In as much as we acknowledge, yes, the systems have been in existence and they are not going anywhere. I mean, if we are to go back to the days of colonialism, our forefathers were able to do this. They awarded us independence. Why is it that it sounds so hard for the legislatures, for the leaders that are elected to award us this?
Linda, that's a very technical question. And it is technical because those technicalities play within the realm of politics. Sadly, politics in our country is driven by interests. And these two wonderful gentlemen, I believe, can attest to that. And that's why Mheshimiwa, in his very eloquent presentation, he looks very discouraged and wondering, how do we now move forward? And that's why I think he said, now post-2020, we need somebody or a system that can be able to push for the aspirations of the citizens. And that's why it was also difficult for me to tell you which political party I belong to or whether I do belong to any, because that really is a frustration that members have to go through. And so in my view, three things that therefore matter. One is separation of power, that the three arms of government are dependent but interdependent.
Okay.
There is no day the executive will perform 100% without the legislature. And that is a fact. The executive needs their laws passed.
Yeah.
If parliamentarians say we are going to boycott, even the people who sit in the office of the leader of majority and sit with the clerk and sit with the speaker will not meet their agenda. If parliamentarians decide to say we are not going to parliament because the manifestos are not being done properly, the promises we made to our people, we said we would build roads, they need the cabinet secretary roads and infrastructure to pass his good laws and policies, but they also need their roads to be done in their constituencies, because failure to that, the Mwananchi will not listen to this kind of story. Right. He will say, but you came here, you were 17 of you, you proved to be the best, I voted for you. You can't come back and say there are cartels in Bunge who cannot make you, because otherwise you won't get elected the next time. So dependence and interdependency, I think, is a very powerful principle of governance that the three arms need to begin to look at and embrace, and consider that even the judiciary also works within laws that are made in the House, at the House, and that's the legislature. And they are exercised. They need executive to therefore execute the kind of laws that, judicial action that they take into account. Yeah. Number two, the political parties. In this kind of sphere, what is the role of Jubilee? Because he said that he is Jubilee, and Jubilee is the ruling party of the day.
Right.
If a member of Jubilee will still have a feeling that my party is not responding to me, cross over to Ford Kenya. And I think in Kenya you need to resign from your party. A by-election is called, and then you register, you go to Ford Kenya, and then you vie for elections. And then the Kenyan will ask you, what happened to Jubilee? Number three is balancing of interests. The president, who is a party leader of Jubilee, has his interests. Unfortunately for Jubilee, almost nothing they said, including the stadia in 6 months, nothing is seemingly working. The political party is also not working, which is a very serious failure of governance within the ruling party itself. But if a member of parliament from the ruling party can share this kind of frustration, Linda, then it means that things are not looking very rosy.
Yeah.
And so in my view, this is a moment of learning. We are learning very important lessons as a people. As governance people, we're also looking at what is working and what is not working. And I think that's probably part of why we have the First Amendment of our Constitution, that there are certain things that have not been working very well. So if we can be able to use the opportunity, if that time comes, to also cure some of the reasons why parliamentarians' interests are not being met and balanced properly within the House, then I think that should be able to give it the opportunity for which it deserves. But that really rests on the political party.
Right.
Does Jubilee feel that its members are not being given the prime view from Parliament, and that they are not able to pass to get their interests met? Then that really is supposed to go back to the political party, and then ask yourself if the leader of majority is a member of your political party, because the ruling party of the day has the leadership of the House.
Yeah.
And then you have the minority. Then you have the whips of the House. They also come from the ruling party, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. If the whips also come from the ruling party, why can't members' interests be met? And if they cannot be met, then please share a calendar of your parliament and say, your bill cannot come through this time because we have this from State House, we have this from the Office of the Deputy President, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior has interest in security, so these three are our priority. When it comes to July, then please bring your bill so that the member is not feeling so frustrated. And then we have a system within which things can be done. And the citizens, because we are the people who vote for them, and the Mwananchi will not listen to this, I repeat. They want to see action. They want to see service delivery. And you spoke about health as I finish. For us to meet the dreams of our health sector as a people, we must fully deprivatize the healthcare of Kenya.
All right.
Health is one of the big four. Is a legacy project of His Excellency the President. Why is it not working? And the President sent monies to 4 pilot counties. Today, there are about 16 counties that are beneficiaries of universal healthcare, the UHC, which is part of the Big Four.
Yeah.
Why is health not working? There is a problem with the system, and one of it from conversations that we have had. In fact, Linda's County Governance Watch will be hosting a national health conference towards end of this month or early next month,
right,
to just look at what is really ailing the health system of Kenya. And we want to bring together the practitioners, the donors, like Danida, Danish Embassy, and all these others who sent health money to the counties to come to the table, and let's talk about why are doctors on strike? Why must people be, heavily taxed when they are going to ask for health care from their facilities?
Yeah.
Why are governors sending doctors home, left, right, and center?
Right.
Is it within their power to hire and fire? So for health care to work, Parliament must do its work. The health committee of Bunge must do its work. And I think in finishing, there has to be a close liaison between the executive, so cabinet, the Ministry of Health, and also the legislature. What kind of laws are we passing to be able to give life to healthcare for it to work?
And counties too, because
and then
it's a
counties as
devolved
well.
unit, yes.
Yeah, because health really, a greater chunk of it is devolved, Schedule 4.
Yeah.
Then ask ourselves, what can counties do properly that they're not doing, and what do they need to be able to put it into force?
Honorable Leseli Simiyu is a doctor. We'll be coming back to him. Mheshimiwa, kindly hold your thoughts for now. We take a quick break and then we come back direct to you.
Strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday. It means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
I say business is not about how much capital you have.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. It's been an amazing year in the kitchen here on The Throwdown. We brought you ugali and brown fish by Sophia. The tasty butter chicken from the classic Mayura restaurant. And the sweet Oreo cake dessert by Lillian. This year, we bring you bigger and better from more mouth-watering meals, kitchen hacks, restaurant reviews, and even street foods. Tune in to The Throwdown every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m. every Monday, it means it's time for...
The biggest challenge of starting a business in Kenya is the layers of licenses you need to pay.
The Grind. We tell you the do's and don'ts of business.
But the biggest fear was whether I'm going to make it in business or whether I'll lose my 150,000.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Still with me this morning, governance expert Kevin Osido, Honorable Nimrod Mbai, Member of Parliament Tui East, and Member of Parliament Tongaren, Dr. Eseli Simiu. As we get to the conversation some more, we have not shelved the Muhisa factor because I'd love to hear the sentiments of Honorable Eseli Simiu in regards to that. But first, just to ponder some more on what it is that has been raised. And like I said, when you see Honorable Eseli Simiu silent, then it is evident that there could be some level of truth on what it is that Mbai speaks about. Tell us more. You have been in this parliament for the longest time, so to speak, yes. I know. And today you can tell us what the debates have been like, what the scenario has been like in terms of progress, whether we're making progress or we are moving in circles.
I think I agree by and large with what has been said by my colleagues.
Yeah.
And when I compare when I first came to Parliament, that was the 10th Parliament, and what I'm seeing now, they are worlds apart. Because like, if I remember in the 10th Parliament, alone those 5 years, I was able to get through 2 motions and a bill. Like the Institute of Human Resource Management, yes. It's me who put it through Parliament that created it. And it was able to work. But what we should realize is that that Parliament and the last 2 parliaments, the 11th and 12th, were different. The 10th Parliament was a quasi-parliamentary system, not a pure presidential system. Mm-hmm. The last Parliament and this Parliament are in a presidential system, which has been implemented wrongly. Now the BBI is attempting to bring back a quasi-parliamentary system. Right. And that's why some people are resisting. While they cheat Kenyans, that BBI is introducing many positions so that Kenyans can be fed up with it. They're not telling them the truth why they are opposing. They are opposing because it's bringing back the quasi-parliamentary system, which is a more effective check and balance on government. Mm-hmm. They don't want to mention that. They don't want to mention that, but they say, oh, you know, it is creating positions for leaders, it's creating whatever, but they are, if you notice, none of them has mentioned that it's bringing back a parliamentary
Honorable Mbai is here. I would want to believe that he is one of the dissenting voices, right?
I guess so.
No.
Oh, you are for the BBI. What's changed?
No, what we've been saying, and it's what we've said all through, is that the document needs to be improved for a win-win situation. We don't need to go for a yes or no thing. Right. Kenya is past. You know, we are in a new dispensation. Why say the document is closed when we feel it's not a Bible. It's not the Bible that is the only word which cannot be opened or closed. There are things which can be changed. At the same time, we can also have the multiple choice thing, because Mwananchi should get the liberty to say no to A and say yes to B
say yes to C, say no to D.
It's a progressive document. That can always be done at some other time.
Because in agreement, I can be agreeing with what he's saying about the quasi setup in Parliament. But I could also not be in agreement with what is happening to the judiciary. So if you, you carry both in one answer, then I'm forced to say yes to what I was not supposed to say yes, because I have to say yes, no, to something I was supposed to say yes to. You know, there is a lot of and imagine from where I sit, if I could have that challenge. What about Mama at home?
All right, let's allow him to finish. Yes. Yeah.
We need to be sincere in our actions as leaders in this country, because we know very well that even in that BBI bill, there are some things that need referendum, there are some things that don't need referendum. So we need to separate those. But what I was saying was that that's what everybody doesn't want to talk about, that we are really bringing back a semi-parliamentary system, which holds the government to account better than this pure presidential system. In the sense that right now, even a committee summoning a minister, he might come or he might not, and he will send the PS and just dodge you. And there's hardly anything you can do. And even if you try to impeach that minister with the so-called tyranny of numbers and what have you, it will be impossible. So that is, the accountability bit was lost. Then when you talk about interests, that politics is about interests, I agree to an extent. But when personal interests subvert the interests of the majority, the interests of the people, then it becomes it's conmanship. It's conmanship because you're using your personal interests to drive a country. That's conmanship. That's not leadership. So yes, politics is about interests, but the community interests should be the ones above, not the personal interests. Once you run politics with personal interests, you get the situation like what we have in Fort Kenya, the fights that we have right now, because the personal interests now become overriding whatever the interest of the wider party membership is. Now, this First Amendment, as you called it, is reintroducing certain things where we'll have a sort of semi-parliamentary system which is more accountable, and we are talking about equitable share of resources, you know, because when they talk about increasing the constituencies, nobody's telling people that some constituencies are too large and yet they are sharing CDF equally. Like in my situation in Bungoma, the population of Bungoma, Kiambu and Kakamega were not very much different. There was a difference of 100 to 80,000 people, 30,000 people or so in the last boundary review by Andrew Ligale. And you know what? Bungoma ended up with 9 constituencies, while Kiambu had 12, Kakamega had 12. So they were shortchanged by 3. Then we go to Parliament and they say now we are sharing CDF equally. So who loses? Bungoma, in my calculation, from the time CDF started being shared equally, not equitably, Bungoma has lost over 3 billion.
And with the BBI, still the same thing.
No, but now they are going to be added constituencies. So and I believe, and by the way, this one another thing, I've had a bill in Parliament to amend that CDF Act so that we go back to equitable share. It has sat there for the last 2 years. Yes, it doesn't move. It sat there for the last 2 years. Now imagine at my seniority in Parliament, and now being a deputy whip, I can't still get this thing on the order paper. So what Mbai is complaining about is true. There's a problem. There's a problem in the legislature. And once there's a problem in the legislature, then the whole country will be affected.
Where does the problem sit?
As he said himself, to get things moving, like you might have a motion, you might have a question, you might have a request for a statement, you might have a bill, but the time taken before this gets to the floor is rather daunting. It's a bit, it's unusual. Especially for those of us who have been there for longer, we find it very, very unusual. And then you find it on the order paper at the bottom. such that you never get to it. You deal with everything else, and it never gets.
Who runs these events? Who runs the speaker?
It's the House Business Committee.
Oh, right, the House Business Committee.
So there is definitely a problem there, and that's why I was saying, yes, politics is about interests, but if the personal interests subvert the interests of the whole, then that becomes conmanship. It's not politics anymore.
Yes.
Then the issue of health, I think we made a big mistake, and we need to face it. Devolution of healthcare was a mistake.
Is it so?
Yes, was a mistake. Because if you are talking about universal healthcare, you want the National Hospital Insurance Fund to be funding these issues. Then you must make sure that it is properly done.
Okay.
The way we devolved healthcare was wrong. Perhaps what should have been devolved was level 1 and 2. The way, even previously at independence, dispensaries and health centers were under the county councils and municipal councils. That's why in Nairobi, the Nairobi City Council had so many health centers. So I think we should not have devolved that. We shouldn't have devolved beyond level 2, so that the rest would have still been under the care of the national government.
Or the healthcare
and then
system.
That way, when you use NHIF as the driver of universal healthcare, you'll be able to achieve. Otherwise, right now, it's difficult because, yes, you get some counties where the pilot was being done. I've got my NHIF card. I'm going to this hospital, but the workers are on strike.
The health fraternity had some level of hope in the BBI that they would probably experience a reverse of the same, an incorporation of a commission or so to speak, but that did not happen. This got most of the people who were in support of the document within the health sector, taking a U-turn in regards to the same. So how then do we...
The Health Services Commission has a long history. Right from the Constitution 2010, the Health Services Commission was in the Constitution. Somehow the team that went to Naivasha threw it out. When we tried to bring it back on the floor of the House, I remember Professor Nyang then was the Minister for Medical Services. We tried, and at one point, we almost succeeded before Mother Karua walked out with 7 people denying us quorum to put the Health Services Commission within the Constitution. Because basically what we are talking about here is the healthcare personnel. If we are mishandling it, then we won't get anywhere. Because healthcare personnel, by the way, is a unique personnel kind of human resource, in the sense that for them, continuous training is part of healthcare personnel, management. Once you don't have that continuous training, it becomes a problem. Right now, even counties have a problem. They have got doctors who have gone for postgraduate studies. They are on the payroll, but they are serving the national government in Kenyatta and in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. So it's the counties paying for the national government healthcare, which, it's just all so skewed. And the mistake was that the then chairman of the Council of Governors, the governor of then Bomet, Isaac Ruto, I believe they just twisted the president, because that time we in COD were saying that these people, the then Jubilee coalition had been against the 2010 constitution, and they will not be able to implement devolution as it should be. So the president was against a wall. And Isaac Ruto took that opportunity to twist the president into devolving everything at a go. Yet the act was very clear. You go to the county, see if the county is ready for that function, then you devolve it. If the county is not ready for that function, you sort of go there and ensure that they become compliant, they are able to handle that devolved function, then you devolve it. So the way we went about devolution was wrong. And that is why we are having problems with healthcare up to now. Because but
you agree that devolution is a good thing?
Devolution is a good thing.
We should have a review on how we handle it.
What did we devolve? Healthcare, we've tried it. Is it working?
It's not working, so we should reverse.
We should look at all these things as a whole and see, is there some problem? Is it the resources that are not enough? Because functions were devolved. Were all the resources actually devolved? Because the health ministry right now holds a bigger budget than it ever held even before devolution. Yet healthcare is the most devolved function. Why are we still having too much money at the ministry? Should most of this money be down there in the counties?
At the counties,
so it's the way we go about it. Then finally, this thing of Bishop Hamala, what he was saying.
Hold it right there. I want to allow, so that at least allow, yes, briefly, and then we'll come back to you on that, yes.
Yeah, on this healthcare thing, I think health services should be viewed from the trajectory of national security. You know, even these days we have arms which are health related, the biological weaponry and the rest. And when we devolve such a serious function too further down to the villages, I think there's a challenge there. I believe one of the things which needs to be done and done immediately is streamlining of the scheme of service for doctors, for healthcare workers. As in, we have the Public Service Commission for public service officers, we have the Teacher Service Commission, we have the Police Service Commission. Why not have a healthcare worker service commission just to take care of the workers, because the healthy workers, because that will give them stability, that will give them the rights they have been agitating for. They will also give them an impetus to get more of whatever they want to get from the government, the way the teachers do their thing. I think that's very important. Then the other thing, let me take you back to Parliament a bit. And because if we don't discuss this thing, Kenya will continue to suffer. Because this is where Mwananchi, each and every Mwananchi is looking at for salvation, basically, not salvation in relation to God. Because it's your Mheshimiwa, it's your member of parliament, it's your MCA who will go and agitate. Part of our work is to agitate and make laws to help Mwananchi get around the country with much ease. So when I'm curtailed and I'm the person who has been elected by Mwananchi, then we come and live in a state of denial. We are in parliament, nothing can move. Imagine yourself, I think he's serving his fourth term, that term. And he's already a deputy whip, and he can't, is in a motion, a bill cannot move, which is originating from him. Imagine a toddler like me who came into parliament yesterday. What will happen to me? I have introduced like 4 bills as you speak, and just being taken round. I watched the South African parliament a lot, and there is freedom. You can, even when the speaker is out of order, you can just tell the speaker, Mr. Speaker, you're out of order. You denied me time to speak, and I've been elected by people who deserves to be listened. Is representative democracy. You know, I'm seated in the parliament, not as Mbai, but it's all the people of Kitwis. It's only that we can't have enough seats for everybody from Kitwis to come and sit there. So when you deny me time to speak, when you deny Sally time to speak, the whole of Bugoma,
Tongaren, yes.
Yeah, you are making the whole of Tongaren and 200,000 people just to shut up, and they are in their country, a free country. So I think some of these bureaucracies, you know, it is said in leadership, a leader is who you have to do the right things. Then you leave it to the management to do it right. As a politician, I have to do the right thing for Mwananchi. I have to say the right things for Mwananchi. I have to originate the right bills for Mwananchi. But somebody somewhere now can put them in the right manner, so that in taking care of the other arms of government for the separation of powers and the rest. But curtailing leaders' positions, especially elected leaders' position to pass through and push through some of these ideas, I think is the worst form of dictatorship we can get to this country. We cannot try to attribute this to the president, but also some of the blame should go to this House Business Committee. I don't know whether they have powers to send me home. I don't care. Because,
at this rate, you need to be scared, though.
No, I'll get re-elected.
They do not, though, yeah?
But they don't have powers to elect me. They will send me home and I'll get re-elected by people, my people. And I'll come back and tell them the same thing. I think it's time now we put this thing on the table. We put this thing on national discussion. Parliament is living in denial. We are lying to Mwananchi that we are doing something important in Parliament.
And true to it.
Guys are warming seats there. Imagine such a bright mind sitting in Parliament like for 4 sessions, and you've been trying to get the eye of the speaker, and the speaker cannot call on himself to speak, but the leader of minority has spoken for like 1,000 times in a week, who represents only one constituency, and I'm representing one constituency. Something is wrong in Parliament.
And again, you know, they're rated. Kevin Osido, let's loop in Kevin. In most cases, they're rated. So, Member of Parliament, how many times have you spoken in Parliament? How many times have you represented your people? And so, in such a scenario, then you'd probably understand their frustration. But then again, of course, we keep saying that the common Mwananchi would barely understand that, because they expect you to go out there and represent them. And so, it's not the first time that I'm hearing a Member of Parliament complain about this. Some have literally told me that, you know what, body-wise, I am in Jubilee, but my heart is somewhere else. Or body-wise, I'm in Parliament, but my heart is somewhere else. Really, what do we do on this one?
We have had a conversation with the people who do the ratings, because where I serve at County Governance Watch, we also rate counties in terms of their performance on health, education, water, agriculture, and infrastructure. But we can never say that this governor is number 1 out of the 47. It is a wrong mechanism of rating. Now, the people who do parliamentary ratings, and I know them, we have had this conversation, and we have said you cannot rate as a member based on the number of times he or she speaks in Bunge. Because two things. One, you must catch the speaker's eye. Now, in catching the speaker's eye is also political, is mechanical. Now, Bunge is electronic, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, because you have a button where you press. But the speaker can choose to assume you.
But sometimes, I call it dishonest, because people get into the house and they press.
Oh.
So you wait for when...
So they have already pressed, which is dishonest. Because you don't know what's going to come, you don't know whether you'll have anything to contribute, but you've already pressed. Then the speaker says he goes by the people, by the time who pressed first. So you lose everything.
So with that kind of a mechanism, you cannot sit, because the ranking is based on TV, media sports, and how many times you are written on the newspapers cover you. You must spare time to go and sit at the gallery, the public gallery, if you want to rank members, and also have a one-on-one with them and understand how does this work. How come Mheshimiwa Millie Odhiambo, for example, if I could use her respectfully as an example, would speak as many times? But it's because she probably will bully the speaker and say, if you don't give me time, I will pour water on you, and she will get very dramatic. And the same to Mheshimiwa from Gladys Wanga, Homa Bay. And she'll be very dramatic and throw papers and say, you're not giving me time. You don't expect certain members.
From what they say, sometimes it calls for
whereas it's not supposed to be like that, because this is called august house. It is a house of respected members. It's a house where people are supposed to learn systems, and in fact, they are called honorable members. It's a house of honor. And so you cannot be acting dishonorably, and you expect that is how you get time to speak. So, from what I'm hearing, I think there's a lot that needs to be done. Through what we call Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, we have a partnership with them. And many times we have had conversations even with the Speaker, Mheshimiwa Justin Muturi. I think if he's a chair of House Business Committee, and from an advocacy lens, what is it that he can do to me if I write a petition and say, Mheshimiwa Speaker, I think your house is ranking very low. We've had conversations with some members based on this kind of platforms, and how many laws you are passing, the number of speakers, members who are speaking in the chambers or in the house is not very encouraging. You are doing because I'm sure that he also wants to leave a legacy. There's a time I heard him saying he wants to be president. I don't think Kenyans want to have such a president who will not ensure that people have a space to exercise their democratic gains, rights, and even ability to speak. But I also know that the speaker works together with the clerk, and that they prepare a lot of the paperwork before the house starts. The question again that begs is, what is the purpose of the clerk's responsibility preparing all these order papers? I don't think it is also fair that a member gets to speak more times than other members when you have 359 people, because National Assembly is 360, right? Plus a speaker. there has to be a manner in which all members will feel represented, because Linda, as I said, the Mwananchi will not listen to this kind of story. She will say, I sent you there to go and represent me.
Yeah.
And sometimes we also make a joke, because we attend these funerals like the one where this gentleman was speaking like a drunk man. And we ask them, mbona wewe unaongea hivi kwenye matanga lakini kwa bunge huongeangi? You don't speak in bunge like this. What is the problem? So I think there is a lot that needs to be done. Kenya is growing. Even our parliament is growing, though I think this particular one from the 10th, 11th, the 12th parliament, even the manner in which they are passing laws that are responsive to people is really dwindling. They're not doing very well, but maybe as Mheshimiwa Iseli says, it could have a lot to do with the leadership. And so this is a call to order for the leadership, which is both the party, the leader of the ruling party, and also the Speaker of the House. I think there is a lot, therefore, a conversation that needs to take place there to ensure that Parliament is progressive and it is also responsive to the needs of the people by passing relevant laws, and also ensuring that members, through the three roles of the Assembly, representation, making laws and oversight, that members who vote, the citizens who vote for the members, feel represented by hearing their voices.
Indeed, and we hope that this lands into the right ears, and we do not go away from this conversation now what you wanted us to speak about, and that particular bite, you know, not to focus much on that, but in a way it speaks of what it is that, you know, is on the ground. And like Honorable Mbai said, you know, sometimes Kenyans are accustomed to, you know, having some level of liking for these ones who appear to be street smart, or so to speak. And in what he says then, such has not been detected in Honorable Muhisa Kitui. Just what is he getting himself into?
I think Bishop Hamala should know that him as a bishop, one of his duties is to attend funerals.
Okay.
Yes, as a bishop, one of his duties is to attend funerals and bury his followers.
Okay.
That's his duty. That's not Muhisa's duty. So he should not compare his functions
with those
as a bishop with the functions of Muhisa Kitui. Because if he talks like that, in Bungoma County, we've hardly seen Musalia at funerals in Bungoma County. So what is he talking about here? I think
you know what members of parliament do, and most of the leaders complain that, you know, sometimes they have to probably try their level best to get extra funds because their constituents, you know, they are members of the ward, the members of the county expect them to attend these funerals, and they expect money out of them. And so I would want to believe that there's some level of...
No, what Hamala is saying is very funny. Is Bishop Hamala saying that when he attends funerals, he gives all the mourners 200 shillings each?
He doesn't.
Is that what he's trying to say?
No.
And then, if he's indeed a bishop and he cares about the welfare of this country, what he's trying to encourage, that they should demand 1,000 shillings.
Right.
Is that sensible? You know, I would expect a man of the cloth to be more sensible than that, because he should know that this Muhisa they are disparaging, by the way, is my constituent.
Okay.
He's my constituent.
Oh, all right.
So I need to be proud of him that he has been brave enough to say he's going for that seat.
Yeah.
You should realize that what he's saying does not help Musalia. In fact, anybody who likes Muhisa now will start hating Musalia by what Bishop is saying. So he should be careful. Whatever he says...
In how he packages his information, because I want to assume that was just ironically speaking, you know?
Yeah, so it can come back to bite him.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, him as a bishop, it's his duty to bury people.
Okay.
He should not think that he should not think that everybody else has that duty to bury people.
Okay.
Then I think last week when we were here, and I kept on insisting that Kenya is a kleptocracy.
Yes.
And Barack Muluka corrected me and introduced a kistocracy. I think that's what Bishop Hamala is trying to introduce.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you can really compare the caliber of Muhisa Kitui, and then we say that this kind of person will never get leadership, that's the problem with this country. We are not putting the right people in the right positions. The people who can actually help this country. Remember, within 6 months of Kibaki taking over this country, Kenyans started seeing change. How did he do it? He got the right people in the right places, and he listened to advice. One thing President Kibaki never did was, if you are an expert in a particular area, he never ignored your expertise. And that's how institutions like KIPRA, Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and so on, came up, because they informed government decisions. Right now, do we hear much about KIPRA? Hardly. Yet, we are supposed to, there should be think tanks in various areas that assist the government in governance issues.
Okay.
So here we are with people like Bishop Hamala who are not looking at that kind of thing. Bishop Hamala wants people to attend funerals. Maybe you should tell that to Musalia to attend funerals because he also doesn't attend many.
Okay. And so you're dancing to Hamala's tune. But hold it right there. When you speak about having, technocrats, so to speak, we have had this conversation, especially when, on the setting up of the cabinet. And in most cases, the conversation has been, how about we get technocrats, people who understand the certain dockets, but such has equally not worked.
No, what used to happen in the parliamentary system, that we used to call the parliamentary system, was that many of these people were also elected. That's how you found Kina Mukisa Kitui were elected.
Okay.
People like Anyang' Nyong'o were elected.
So their politicians come technocrats.
Yes.
Okay.
And they would understand a lot of these things.
Right.
Right now, with the way we are going, most technocrats are shying away from elective positions, in the sense that politics has been so monetized that, and again, I would say the failure on IEBC, on vetting who can run for elections and who should not, such that you find many technocrats now don't want to get involved in elective politics. They find it too dirty, they feel it's too low, they don't want to get involved. And that will affect Parliament. Because then the caliber of people who come to Parliament, even if you are to make them ministers, then the technocrats will just run circles around them. Because if you could be a minister, but if you don't understand the docket you are running, then the technocrats there will just run circles around you and you will not be able to give any policy direction. So it's important that we look at our politics holistically. And IEBC needs to get to work so that if I do not deserve to be on an elective position, they should not allow me to run. Because if they allow me to run, definitely the Mwananchi doesn't know that, they will elect me.
Okay.
So then what are we doing? So we need to actually relook at our politics. Because there's this thing about, people should have degrees and things like that. To me, I don't think that's the critical thing. Because previously, it was so long as you could pass English and Swahili test at the Electoral Commission, then you would be elected. And we had very good leaders. But now we are insisting on degrees and just ensuring that people on River Road who make fake degrees are making money by creating fake degrees. Because our system itself is so corrupt that even the person who is supposed to follow up and find out that this degree is actually genuine, they themselves are corrupt. So it becomes a toll station.
Well, we
you
have
a fake degree,
in the current...
you want me to authenticate it, bring this much, and I'll authenticate it, whether it was genuine or not.
Which is true, actually.
And that's why I keep on insisting. You see many people with degrees up to PhD level. But when you listen to their substance, it's questionable. That's why I keep on insisting that a degree is not a vaccination against idiocy and stupidity.
All right. Okay. Well, maybe it is in the environment that the degree is gotten from, in the sense that probably you would go to campus, have interactions with people, and what it is that you gather from there, apart from the paper or apart from the education perspective, is equally very important for leadership. Because again, we can sit here and argue that on equal measures, we have elected individuals who are not well learned, so to speak, and out of it, we have not gotten good results.
One of the things Mheshimiwa Sel is not telling you is with all your education and being a technocrat, being a professor, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being taught technical. If you want to ascend to these positions, for you now to get to a position of serving and using your skills, you will have to go to the village and appease and talk to in the language of common Mwananchi for you to be elected. And the language is what the bishop is using there. The bishop is right in the language he's using. Actually, I was very keen to understand why Mheshimiwa is really against the bishop, but I came to understand Mukisa Kitui comes from his constituency. So he has a duty to defend his constituency, which he has done very well. And people are very happy at home. Mukisa Kitui was once a member of parliament. And you could see Mukisa Kitui going to those funerals, doing those Luya jinks very well, as in this bishop can't beat Mukisa in that language.
Okay.
If Mukisa went down to that. But Mukisa, being the technocrat he is, he knows how to balance it. He goes to the village, he behaves the way Mwananchi wants
him to.
Some manners to look like, and Mwananchi picks up on him. Then he comes, finds Kibaki, and now they sit down, the technocrat sits down to run the economy. But one of the things we should be also afraid of, like the government we have now, we have very well educated fellas. Somebody who is the realm of a very serious ministry, very educated, a professor, a doctor, but they are not in sync with what is happening in the village. Because by the end of the day, the solutions are for what is happening in the villages. This is where you use a very sophisticated tool to solve a very simple problem in the village, because you are too educated. We also need to balance, because some of these guys, the way are like the Jubilee government, the biggest undoing for the Jubilee government is overqualification. Some guys are too qualified for the position they've been given. They are thinking like we are not in Kenya. They are also trying to solve problems in the UK, in a theater. Somebody who is doing the art sanctuary, forgetting that you are talking about kids in a rural primary school where there is no water. Even kids don't get water for drinking, leave alone for washing hands. So you are talking of national security issues, and it's like you are in space somewhere with a Russian machine, forgetting that you are discussing about D+ police officer holding a G3 who is actually mingling with young men who have had this mukuka and the rest. That is the kind of security and insecurity things that you need to discuss first and resolve, which a chief will do very well. A chief, a local assistant chief who has a C manners and they can speak in Swahili and English, the way Mheshimiwa Seli put it, will resolve a serious security matter better than a professor of linguistics who is seated here in Nairobi, who thinks as in we can't use very sophisticated tools, very sophisticated ways of thinking to solve the very simple problems. Most of our problems need simple solutions, which can be done by people who have not acquired all these kind of.
But just for how long should we sit with these simple, problems when we're talking progress, when we're talking advancement, when we're talking development, when we're talking, a scenario where we're going to match up to the rest of the world that is considered as the bigger brothers?
That's where now we need Mukisa Kitui.
Okay.
Somebody who can think from the village and think also from Arambe House. That's where we need a Sel and Nimrod. Somebody who can go to the village, solve a problem in the village manner, but in the evening or tomorrow morning you wake up in the office as a technocrat at the same time. But when we get somebody who is just been wired a technocrat all through without the village thinking, these guys are messing our country.
Right,
we need people who can think from both spheres.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's close on this one.
That's why the parliamentary system is correct.
Okay.
Through the BBI.
Oh, all right.
Because we are now introducing ministers being chosen from the House. These are people who have been elected by the people. So they are wired up to the village.
Okay.
So if you can get more technocrats coming into competitive politics so they can be elected, so that if this person is made a minister of a particular docket, he has the knowledge of that docket and is also wired up to the village.
Your view on Mukisa Kitui in about 30 seconds or so.
Interestingly, I attended a meeting yesterday, quite, high-level citizens.
Okay.
And out of 21 people, interestingly, 11 of them said now they have a presidential candidate.
Oh,
because there's a lady who walked into the room and they gave us a story about, Mukisa Kitui and all these issues. And so I asked, so how many of us think that he can actually win an election in the current political context? And 11 out of 21 said, now we have a presidential candidate. And I was like, wow, this is...
A candidate for the high level or a candidate?
Presidential candidate, like for the presidency.
Okay, but you speak of this meeting being a meeting
yes,
of
these are like directors
of
both some government, parastatals, civil society, people in security sector. people in governance. I consider
Call them the
that
middle class, or so to speak, who
well,
in most
middle
cases...
class in Kenya, does it work? But
do we even have a middle class? Okay.
Yeah, which I think,
which is a good...
If is properly propped. Okay. You know, and because as Mheshimiwa Mbai says, we have videos of Mheshimiwa Muisa Kitui dancing to the bullfightings in his village, and that really is low level. I don't think that, as the bishop was saying, Muisa Kitui cannot do that. Probably he can do it better than even the bullfighter himself. And if that is what it will take for him to be elected, then it shows that he is ready for it. And so I think that, yes, as is the democratic right of everyone, including myself, to vie for any office, it is his right as well. And I think that the more they are, the more the merrier, and the better for us, so that we can be able to then get proper choices of what we call a quasi-technical and also political perspective.
Well, the fear then would be in Mulembe Nation, because the more they are, the more the vote is going to be.
I've always argued for Mulembe Nation, that's not a big issue. I'll just be very brief. For Mulembe Nation, I don't think that's the issue. I've always argued that whoever is going to lead the Mulembe Nation needs to get out of their comfort zone and atembe, okay? Talk to the people. Across Mulembe Nation, across Kenya.
Yes.
If you're just sitting in a comfort zone that you'll be endorsed, forget it.
Okay.
You need to get up and move. I always argue that the leader of the Mulembe Nation will emerge. Will not be endorsed at a conference table.
Yes.
So if anybody's getting scared by Mohisa's throwing in his hat, then get up and move. Okay. Yes.
All right. Honorable Mbai.
Linda, politics is a science. I've done political science in my undergraduate. And the decision-making process of the masses. You know, I can make a decision like Nimrod. We can make a decision here in a boardroom. But where the Turkanas and the people in the Mijkendas and the Kambas and the Luyas, everyone within the Kenyan boundaries gets to make their decision, as in you can feel them wave going towards some certain direction in a political thinking. It's that it takes time. The decision-making process of masses takes time. It's not a 1 year, 2 year thing. I can see Mukisa Kitui, honestly, a very smart politician, a very smart technocrat, but being our future president, not a 2022 president. The time is so short for the masses to make a decision on Mukisa Kitui.
But just how...
The masses in Kenya have already made their decisions about their presidential candidates.
Is it so?
Yes.
All right.
Which cannot change, basically. Let me tell you.
Yes.
It will need another 4 years
for them to switch,
change what it will take. It needs Mukisa 4 years to draw a quarter of Raila Odinga believers from him.
Okay.
It will take Mukisa Kitui 5 years to draw a third of William Ruto supporters from him. It will take even the weakest of all the presidential candidates.
Linda, that is...
even as you respond to this.
and that is scientific.
These are the core tenets
that is
of
scientific.
propagandism.
No, it's
a lie spoken long enough and severally enough becomes the truth.
But speaking as
by Goebbels.
That has happened, and I would want to agree with you. In the past, such has happened, true to speak. And we've seen that it's sometimes not easy to sway that staunch aspect. I mean, look at what happened after the handshake. Most of the people who were supporters of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, supporters of President Uhuru Kenyatta, were so disappointed in that. But reality is that over time, they got over it. And again, they just kept on holding their allegiance to these particular individuals. And so, in a way, Mheshimiwa has a point in what it is that he says. But even as he argues that way, the question then would be, with allegations of, irregularities, or so to speak, and all these issues of us not having, genuine elections processes, just how much does the vote of the common mwananchi count, or these supporters that we're speaking about?
Linda, this is shocking. In fact, I'm utterly dismayed by these sentiments.
All
because I can't. It sounds truthful, but it's a
propaganda, as what the says.
It's serious propaganda, because we only know of not more than, I think, 3 individuals who have declared their interest in running for the presidency of this great Republic of Kenya. 2, even a second in Kenya, in terms of politics, is such a long time.
Okay.
I have just given you a simple, it might be considered non-proportional statistic of people who initially didn't even think that the people that he's mentioning were their presidential candidates. But now they are saying they have a presidential candidate. And I'm not saying this because I am campaigning for Mheshimiwa Mugisa. Since he came back, I've not met him. I only met him in Dubai when he came to speak as a Secretary General of UNCTAD. And he only said, hi, Mkenya mwenzangu, because I had a Kenyan badge. And we never saw. I have no idea what he wants to bring to Kenya. I don't know what he is promising to do. But I'm just saying that there are people who now consider him a presidential candidate. We cannot continue to say that Kenyans have made up their minds on who they want to vote for. Because many things have happened, even in that time frame that you are talking about. Today, social media can change a lot of things in a span of just a minute like this. It depends on how you use it, because it is technology that cannot be underestimated. Anybody today who has no name can choose to say, including Mheshimiwa Mbai here, can decide to say, I'm running for president. And you get bloggers, you get these Twitter people, you get people who can, by 9 p.m., people will be saying, now we have a presidential candidate. Yet there is even nothing that you want to do. But by and large is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the citizenry level, lots of civic education, a lot of what we see taking place, including Waheshimiwas, honorable members fighting in front of, citizens. It's such a shameful practice. It's unthinkable. It's unimaginable. But if we want to use those kind of individuals to rate the kind of people that Kenyans want to vote for, then I think we are not headed to the right place. Number 2, the political parties need to do a lot of work in terms of, as Mheshimiwa Eseli said, who is getting cleared to run for office. It doesn't have to get to the IEBC level, because IEBC deals with a list of people that has been submitted to the commission. So the political parties also need to sit back and ask themselves, what kind of people are we nominating and are we submitting? What kind of nominees are we presenting for election, or even to be put into government positions, whether as cabinet secretaries or assistants or directors, and even members who are nominated as nominated members of both county assemblies and also parliament. I think a lot of work has to be done, because the role of the citizen is just to go and vote. But what the citizen is looking for is, how does your policies, all these things, that the lies that you tell us, how do they relate to the amount of food I put on the table, my children going to school, and just having peace, security to be able to do my business on a normal basis. And then beyond that, it goes back to the institution. So how much does the vote count? So we must therefore make that vote count, and the citizen has to feel that my vote is actually counting by the virtue and nature of the person that you put in office.
All right, well, as we come to the last minute, you better make it 30 seconds, Mheshimiwa. In 30 seconds, because I want to hit you a bit hard on the Jubilee factor before time is out. Yes.
They made they could say we have a candidate in Secretary. Some technocrats, guys sharp seated in Nairobi, they understand that very well. But if you talk to Mheshimiwa Eseli, you walk to a polling station in Turkana, down in the middle of the country, nowhere in the country, you find a fella who is a broker of that polling station. And before appeasing him, and going down to appease another
broker in another
bureaucracy somewhere within the polling station, your name cannot even appear to be on top of the list of MPs. Forget about the president. There are seats in this country, even around the world, which you can make some impact within a short period of time. A member of parliament, you can come in within a month, 2 months, and you've done the bloggers, you've gone around with the PA system and all that, and your name is up and you are ranking, but not the presidency. For the presidency, you need not less than 4 years in any country, not Kenya alone. In the whole world. Obama started, and you could see Obama with Clinton. He was all over there. Then it came when he was a senator. He had started positioning himself. Look at where Raila has come from, as in all along.
Uhuru himself could not make it on the first phase.
Linda, there's a problem.
Uhuru came with the Kenyatta name.
Okay.
He lost.
Okay.
He had to do 10 years to make Wanainji believe in him.
So the DP also might have to wait some more, in as much as he's been there as the DP.
Uhuru, how long did they take before they won the presidency?
Let's just say Uhuru tried it first and lost it. So Ruto might need to...
So the thing is that's where
let's not say Ruto.
The propaganda
let's say Uhuru. You remember Uhuru had lost in 2022 as the presidential candidate?
Yes.
And he was out there for 10 years trying and fighting for the same seat, being a leader of the
same will happen with the DP?
And the DP had also tried to do national politics.
He's not tried the presidency.
And Muhisa has never done national politics?
He has.
I will say
he has
very
little.
Very little.
No, I think
it's only me and Kalonzo Musyoka who knows Mugita Gitui.
This is what I call high level propaganda. People who fear opposition, people who fear competition will always come up with derogatory propaganda.
But in what interest would he fear this?
No, because he's probably a Ruto supporter.
No, I'm just trying to say the most sensible thing. And I will agree to Bishop, with the Bishop. We will see somebody who's been cheering an international organization becoming a Mukarukanga in Kenya with such a kind of brain. But the reason is because the decision-making process of Mwananchi.
You know, the first thing to do,
had not given him enough time.
The first intention of
to sell his name
is to deconstruct the person. So how do you deconstruct the person? By using those idioms that Bishop Hamala was using, by the kind of propaganda that was cooked in Goebbels' kitchen, like what he's trying to bring.
But it's also to say, Linda, it's also to say that ascending to certain positions up to the presidency, it is not to say what I think Mheshimiwa is saying, which is to say that you must be this ugly-looking player. We must also make politics professional. And Mheshimiwa Muhisa Gitui is coming in from this professional phase and is saying, I have served in these capacities. This is what I have done, because he's also been an MP. He's been a cabinet minister in this country. And I also said in my earlier submission that if it gets to the level of dancing to the the bullfighting and all that, he can as well do it. I was just repeating what you said. So that then we should not stop. I mean, we should not lock out people who don't want to do the kind of drama that the bishop is doing for them to ascend to the politics, because that is how we lock out people whom we are now calling technocrats. You have a nice doctor, like say an example of Mheshimiwa Uma Oluga, who is a progressive doctor, is doing a lot of health policies and is making it. And one day when he decides to run for, say, a county governor, you say, you are a technocrat, you are a doctor, you cannot make it. And that is really, in my view, discouraging.
All right, let's close that one. Briefly, let's listen into what is happening within the Jubilee Party. President Uhuru Kenyatta's utterances that probably could speak of what the situation is like in this particular party. Honorable Irungu Kangata, also former member, former governor, that is Kiambu County, also will be probably speaking. Let's listen into some of these bites, or the much that we can get, so that we can come and wind up on this subject on just whether, we all are under Jubilee, as Mheshimiwa Nimrod says.
Tu nilikuwa mmoja wenye walipigia kura Uhuru Kenyatta hata akianguka. 2013 nikamsupport, 2017 nikamsupport. Mimi najua makosa hata si Uhuru, shinda ni huyu mtu wa kitendawili alipoingia kwa serikali. Nimuuliza swali. Mimi nilikuwa naongoza ile vita, ilikuwa kwa Senate ya one man, one shilling, one vote, ya kusaidia watu wa hapa Mount Kenya. Na katika hiyo vita, watu ambaye wametoka pande ya NASA walipiga no. Kunaye alifutwa kazi. Sisi hii mambo ya kufuta kazi watu wa Mount Kenya imeanza wakati yule mtu wa kitendawili ameingiza mguu katika serikali. Sasa nimuulize swali, akiingiza miguu yote mbili kama president, si tumeisha? Wangapi wanasema tumeisha? Mheshimiwa Ruto, wakati serikali ya 2017 na 2013, kulikuwa na viongozi wengi walikuwa katika Jubilee, walikuwa wanakashifu serikali. Hakuna hata moja alifutwa. Hata wengine walipewa nomination kama huyu katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tunaelewana?
na hakuna haja ya kuinsight Wakenya wapigane wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Unakuja unasema kwa mdomo moja serikali ni mbaya, alafu kwa mdomo mwingine ati tumefanya kama serikali. Kwani serikali ni ngapi? Mnajua serikali ngapi Kenya hii? Moja. Ni moja ama ni mbili? Moja. Si ni moja? Si ni moja? Kama unataka uzuri wake, kae naye. Kama unataja ubaya wake, toka uache wale wengine waendelee. Lakini huwezi kuja na mdomo moja unasema hii, mdomo mwingine unasema matusi ya wale ambao mko ndani yao na mmesema mnafanya na wao. Ama ni namna gani wenzangu? Ukweli. Kwa heshima sio utumwa. Tuheshimiane jameni. Na tukiheshimiana Kenya itakuwa nchi nzuri, itakuwa nchi ya maana, itakuwa nchi safi, itakuwa nchi ambao Wakenya wanajivunia. Lakini ukikuja kila saa.
We're at 54, gentlemen, we wind up at 58 exactly. And so I'll allow Honorable Nimrod 2 minutes because of this, and then one to the rest of the gentlemen. I'd love for you to tell us where you will be submitting your end month, your fee, your party fee, to Jubilee, to UDA in this scenario, and also react on this. Honestly, Jubilee is not in order.
I like being truthful.
Okay.
Yes, I'm submitting some percentage of my monthly contributions to the political parties to Jubilee.
Okay.
And I've also subscribed to another welfare group, which I will also put in some percentage.
Kositani says everybody will.
I believe in not putting all the eggs in one basket.
All right.
Yeah, basically. But I'm a member of Jubilee. I'm contributing to Jubilee, but I will also contribute to another
basket.
Yeah, to another basket.
Okay.
For the social welfare schemes for future, which is very important.
Yeah.
But I think we all understand and we all know we have a problem. We had a Ruto government from 2013 to 2017, and now we have a Ruto government from 2017 heading to 2022.
Yeah.
And we can see completely different governments scenarios. The way Mheshimiwa Irunga Ng'ata has put it, it is the way it is. We have a 2013-2017 Uhuru Kenyatta who was so tolerant. You never saw Uhuru arrest any politician for insulting them. We actually, between 2013 and 2017, is when Uhuru was called the worst of the worst in terms of political names, even involving his family. But no single day a politician was arrested for insulting or attacking the president. But now the president we have between 2017 and
30 seconds, Mahesh.
Yeah, even a very small thing, you get somebody arrested. You get the president so agitated. So the level of agitation, you can't tell what changed in our president. We elected him with the numbers, but something has changed, and everybody can tell.
Honorable Eseli.
Either you like him or you don't like him.
For me,
but one of the things I can say, lastly, is what Irunga Ng'ata is saying. We have a friend of ours who has joined Jubilee.
Yeah.
And we believe he is a guy who has come with this mischief. The mischief is not just natural, it's supernatural. Right. It's magic. There is a magician in it.
If I had any money and I wanted to make an investment somewhere, I would invest in transport.
Okay.
So that I can be carrying the Jubilee cheerleaders to all the meetings, because they do transport cheerleaders.
All right.
I think I would make a killing. But I think there are people in this country, in this country's politics, whose survival depends on how much they criticize Raila. Whose survival depends on how much they criticize Raila.
Okay.
And for them to succeed, they must criticize Raila.
Right.
Not that I'm holding brief for Raila or anything, but I would say that these people do not have any guts. If they are dissatisfied with their party, they should maybe borrow a leaf from what Raila did when he was dissatisfied with Fort Kenya.
Okay.
He quit.
Stepped out.
He quit and went for a by-election.
Okay.
And if these people are really made of sterner stuff, they should now quit and go for by-elections.
All right, 30 seconds.
I would say exactly what Mheshimiwa has said. If you are feeling uncomfortable in your political party, leave, because that is really what it is. Leave, let a by-election be called, get back. Second thing is, I think Mheshimiwa Irunga Ng'ata is speaking like whom I didn't think that he is, but I think now his true colors are coming out.
Yeah.
And it's quite unfortunate, it is sad, But I think he's singing some music to the people that the people around him want to hear.
Yeah.
Lastly, the president is saying the truth. You can't be saying this government, that government, and you are right at the apex of that government.
Yeah.
So the best thing is, I hope that the president will be able to, he's more or less thought about this at the very late moments of his presidency.
Okay.
I hope he'll be able to galvanize his power and get to the apex of both the party and the government.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll have some more of this. It was good having you, Honorable